Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
And away we go on a Tuesday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us, along with James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkid. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Today's a great day to curl up on the couch, watch baseball all day, and grab a 12-pack of Modelo. Do you hear that sound, James? You hear that?
Silence?
Yes. It's the sound of closure. You know, I was texted last night by David Smoke, our friend from 365 Sports. He texted me, and finally an ending. And I don't think I could have said it any better. Yesterday, Brendan Sorsby and Texas Tech officially agreed to mutually part ways. He has already applied for the NFL supplemental draft. In doing so, he withdrew his lawsuit, making him ineligible, therefore making him eligible for the supplemental draft. The Big 12 filed the lawsuit yesterday that is actually very much groundbreaking in its nature and will continue. And we'll get into that coming up and why it's such a big deal. But, James, it's hard to think that Brett Yormark's want for consensus here, where you had 15 programs and institutions on one side and Texas Tech on the other, ultimately it's hard to believe that this lawsuit being filed by the Big 12 and the subsequent action by Sorsby and his team are pretty good indication of what forced this issue here.
Oh, very much so. And when you asked me last Thursday how I thought this would all play out, I said I didn't think he would play. And sometimes the court of public opinion is the one that matters most. The part about this whole thing and I'm so glad it's over. I cannot wait to have this behind us and move ahead and actually talk football.
I think everybody is on that same page here.
Totally. The part that bothers me about the whole thing, we talked yesterday about just how difficult of a position it was for the Big 12, for all 16 member institutions. But the part that bothers me is, like, it didn't have to end this way for Brendan Sorsby. And Texas Tech and Cody Campbell's releasing a statement last night and saying that, hey, by the way, Brendan Sorsby was the one that wanted to do this, and Brendan Sorsby paid for his own attorneys, and Brendan Sorsby this, and Brendan Sorsby that. And if that is indeed the case, like, there was a version of this story where Brendan Sorsby was painted in a very different light. He had an opportunity to walk away in some ways. Maybe a hero is taking it too far, but definitely not a villain. And that's the part that saddens me most, is just how he's being portrayed, how this entire thing got to this point. And it hasn't been good all the way around. It hasn't been good for Texas Tech. It hasn't been good for Brendan Sorsby. But thank goodness it is finally done.
What do you mean by that in terms of how Sorsby's been being portrayed? Or just expand on that.
So Brendan Sorsby is still being painted as a villain, a guy who wanted to go against the integrity of the sport to play football, when the court of public opinion said, can't do that. No. And we touched on this a little bit yesterday, but, like, gambling is a very serious disease. It is an addiction. And he had an opportunity to come forward with the addiction, get clean, and then that's it. Full stop. Prepare for the NFL. Instead of owning it, getting out in front of it, making it his, he lawyered up, he went to court, and he fought this thing tooth and nail. And then he had Joey McGuire behind him. He had Cody Campbell behind him. He had the entire Texas Tech support team with the chancellor and the president and everybody else behind him, posting 20-minute videos on social media. I just felt like it was a missed opportunity. I understand wanting to play, but this got magnified and this got enhanced, and the way that Sorsby and Texas Tech alienated the entire college football landscape, like, it didn't have to be this way.
Yeah. Well, and now sort of outgoing, you wonder, like, how do Texas Tech fans feel about Brendan Sorsby now that they're on the other side of this?
Totally.
You know, it's funny because you can kind of look ahead, and we'll get to September and October, maybe even November, and be like, hey, remember the Brendan Sorsby thing? It'll be such a blip on the radar, but it was obviously such a huge part of the summer. I mean, Sorsby decided to transfer to Texas Tech in January. The news from this came out at the end of April. So think about close to 8 weeks now later, we finally have a resolution in this. I would say in terms of the Sorsby piece that you just alluded to, a lack of awareness on how this thing would go from a public perception standpoint. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it was pretty obvious that once the injunction was granted, and that we felt pretty confident that it would be based on precedent here, that the floodgates would open for criticism of him. And, to not understand that seems extremely far-fetched. But I have no other explanation for it. What about Texas Tech here?
Yeah.
How do they come out of this?
Not great. I mean, it was, to your point, they were unprepared for that scenario. They were prepared for the scenario of, we won in court, this is done, it all goes away. And the college football nation and the Big 12 and its other 15-member institutions very much pushed back on that. They did not see this escalation coming, certainly to this degree. And when it did, Texas Tech, I think the for lack of a better word, mistake that they made was when that blowback hit, instead of pivoting in any way, they doubled down. They dug in. They got their most powerful, heaviest hitters behind them, and they fought back. And they went on the defensive, and they tried to make everybody like them. This is why we are right. This is why everybody else is wrong. And this is why Brendan Sorsby should be able to play. There was no admission of, hey, we could have handled this differently. We're exploring other options. We're still going through the process. It was, he's playing, screw you guys. He's going to be on the field week 3.
What do you do now if you're the Big 12? For Brett Yormark, do you open up your arms for a big hug? Come here, Lords. Come here, Kirby. Let's hug it out.
Man, I would love to be a fly on the wall in those conversations whenever they take place. Big 12 Media Days is going to be a circus. And the Big 12, I mean, Commissioner Yormark deserves a tremendous amount of credit. We talked during a commercial break yesterday. It's kind of the old cliche of F around and find out. Like, they went out and hired the most aggressive, heaviest hitting law firm in the country. The same group that helped USC and UCLA depart from the Pac-12 behind closed doors and hit the college football landscape with that bombshell of an announcement and a move to the Big Ten that is really, that was the birth to me of reshaping college sports to where we are now. But Texas Tech planted their flag, they stood behind it, and eventually they had no other choice but to cave.
And, what's interesting, too, is the Big 12 comes out the other side now in really a landmark lawsuit case here because of the threat from the Attorney General of the state of Texas and Ken Paxton. So that lawsuit continues to move forward and will, if won by the Big 12, set a precedent across college athletics that, yes, conferences can set rules that can go above and beyond the NCAA, and injunctions will not get in the way of the conference itself being able to apply rules. Also, protecting its first right amendments for a conference to be able to operate a certain way. Basically, the threat by Paxton caused the Big 12 to operate a different way. It forced them to push a meeting down the road, and that threat alone that caused the Big 12 to act differently will be the basis for the First Amendment standing up in future litigation or situations like this against conferences when it comes to the actual state. So it will remove any sort of state intervention on conferences acting across state lines, that they cannot be threatened for any type of punishment. So, it's really interesting that Ken Paxton did Cody Campbell a solid for his campaign contribution donation. But what he's really done is allowed the Big 12 to set a precedent in court through this lawsuit that will have ramifications across all of college athletics forever.
Texas Tech has done the Big 12 a tremendous favor.
Yeah.
In, number one, rallying all 15 other member institutions to be more united and tighter than ever before, to paint the commissioner and the head of this conference in a very promising light that, hey, I've got our member institutions back, whatever that majority looks like. Texas Tech has also done every other team on their schedule that they will play outside of Lubbock a huge favor, because every single stadium that Texas Tech walks into is going to be a sellout, rowdiest crowd of the year. We did our biggest game segment. We could look at every road game for Texas Tech. That just became the biggest game because now everybody else is out for blood. And then getting the Texas AG involved in this to try to get out in front of it backfired. To your point, that is where the 47-page federal lawsuit stems from. If that doesn't happen, the Big 12, at least as of now, maybe doesn't have a leg to stand on. But the Big 12, the lawsuit is about the threat to the bylaws of the conference.
Right, basically
it was
the
made
conference
by the Texas AG.
Yeah, basically the conference and many conferences don't yet know how to react to lawsuits against the conferences. We know what happens to the NCAA, but can the conference then apply its own bylaws to enforce rules, to permit punishment, to withhold funds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? These are all agreed upon as rules of engagement. And this lawsuit will basically say, yes, we'll affirm that conferences can, if, in fact, the Big 12 wins its lawsuit, which it looks like it could very well win that lawsuit.
Now, I get that Texas Tech was in a difficult position if they were going to continue to push for Sorsby to play. Because even if you don't get Ken Paxton involved, like the Big 12 was going to push back, right? The Big 12 was going to hold a discussion, come up with their own sanctions and their own penalties and their whatever that looks like. So Texas Tech was trying to get out in front of what a problem or a situation that they knew was pending. It was just a matter of time. But they did it quickly, they did it abruptly, and it opened the door for the Big 12 with 90 days before the college football season actually starts from when we were talking about this like a week or two ago. It gave them ample time to get that done. And now it's the Will Hammond era, or Lloyd Jones III, or Kirk Francis.
Yeah. Cannot explain to you how happy this made me to read and to see. Number one, because, and I think you hit this, but you just can't, I don't think you can just touch on it enough. Not only with his landmark lawsuit potentially, but the leadership of Brett Yormark was on full display. You know, a conference has never really been up against something like this, where the conference really has to fight for its own credibility. Remember, Texas Tech was not just representing Texas Tech, but represented the Big 12. And the way in which the discourse surrounded Texas Tech and therefore the Big 12 throughout this was extremely detrimental. And, you know, Yormark did not have any opinions on it, preconceived or otherwise. He met with everybody. He found where the consensus was, and that was punishment. 15 programs on one side, Texas Tech on the other. For a league that had forever been wrapped up in its top two brands, placating to whatever they wanted and whatever their whims were, this is a welcome sea change that continues to reinforce, James, that this is very much a conference, one for all and all for one.
Very well said.
It's not just a good slogan for a T-shirt here, man. This is exactly what Yormark is striving for. Consensus. It's not just majority. It is consensus, and he got consensus here in the face of extreme adversity. Did not look like he was going to get his consensus. He got it.
Mm-hmm. And I love the way that he operates. He releases a statement. It is very deliberate. It is very careful. It's not taking one side or the other. And really, still to this day, he has not had an opinion on the status of should he play, should he not play. His statements have all been driven with that one reinforcing point that we are going to do what is best for the 16 member institutions and what is best for this conference. And while everybody else gets into these petty arguments, these passive-aggressive comments. Like, Yormark is above and beyond that. He doesn't play that game, and I love that about him. He just drops a 47-page federal lawsuit that says, this is my stance. Like, he doesn't need to take to social media. He doesn't need to do interviews. He doesn't need to compare the Texas Tech situation to Penn State or Iowa State or Alabama or anybody else like we heard, or other crimes that have been committed that have nothing to do with football. He just drops this bombshell and says, we'll see you in court. I just love it, man. It's the ultimate flex.
Yeah, and it's the ultimate leadership move, measured, well thought out, not reacting with emotion. It's everything you want in a leader, and again, as a leader that strives for consensus, I don't think we can underplay the role and the importance of that in this particular conference, a conference that did not have that for a long time for fear of losing those brands that they lost anyways.
Mm-hmm. And when various outlets are reaching out and trying to get a comment, he continued to say these conversations will remain within the conference. That is how you handle your business. It's private. It's intense. Just his entire PR strategy and approach. We're having thoughtful and productive conversations. You don't need to say anything else. Silence can be the ultimate power move. And then, bam, you hit him with this 47-page lawsuit. Texas Tech is spiraling, and ultimately the conclusion is what not just the commissioner wanted, but everybody else in the Big 12 and outside of the conference.
Yeah, I mean, when everybody's pointing the finger at you, if you're Brett Sorsby, at some point you got to realize that finger is being pointed in every direction at me, including from Texas Tech fans. Maybe not from the administration, maybe not from, people involved, but for the most part, you have every member of the Big 12, all of college football, the media, fans pointed at you saying, no, absolutely not. And perhaps it was the Big 12's lawsuit, finally, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
The kid went 13 for 33 passing for less than 200 yards against Utah late in the year. This isn't Patrick Mahomes. Is he a really good quarterback? Yes, he's efficient. Yes, he's dual threat. Yes, he has a cannon for an arm. But he's also not won a game in November the last 2 seasons. There's a $5 million price tag that certainly played a role in this, but just the way he was being portrayed as Mahomes or insert NFL quarterback top prospect here, right? Like, I think Texas Tech, now they can focus on their football team with the guys that they have in that room. They're not struggling for depth. They have 3 dudes. They'll have a competition. They weren't going to have Sorsby either of those first 2 games anyway. Will Hammond continues down the recovery road. Ultimately, there is still time for Texas Tech to turn this around and now focus on the season ahead.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. We have an elimination game for West Virginia in the College World Series later on this afternoon at 1 o'clock Central. It's West Virginia and Troy in an elimination game. West Virginia already beat Troy, but then lost to North Carolina. Troy defeated Ole Miss in a elimination game, and now both West Virginia and Troy face elimination with double elimination here. The winner will go on to take North Carolina on tomorrow. North Carolina just needs to win 1 against the winner of Troy, West Virginia, whereas Troy, West Virginia would need to win 2 in that double elimination round of the Men's College World Series. So, of course, we'll be paying close attention to that game, and we'll be previewing that game throughout the show today. On the way next, though, now we know. We thought Brendan Sorsby would be the starting quarterback for Texas Tech in January. Now we've hit June, and we know he will not be. So who is the favorite in the Big 12? Hallelujah. We can finally answer that question and what the ceiling might be for a Big 12 champion in the playoff. That's all on the way next. With James Westling, I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
touchdown.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. See all this really cool gear we have behind us? Check out Rally House to buy your own West Virginia plush football.
When did Baby J enter the chat? That's a new addition.
It's not Baby J. What are you got to brush up on your... Baby J has a half number?
That's a very small Jayhawk.
Well, it's
If
mini...
that's full-size J, I can't imagine how small Baby J is.
You're talking about the plush
Small
version.
hands. Carny folk.
My wife in college was asked to be Little J.
Smell like
Baby
cabbage.
J.
Did she do it?
Classic or Austin Powers reference. Absolutely not. She did not. No.
Did she go through the tryout process?
She did not. No.
Because I've heard that alone is very intense.
Very
Make
rigorous.
you do some weird stuff.
I think initially they just survey the campus to find small people. Is basically what happened. Hey, you're small, and you fit into tight windows. Could you? Would you? Could you?
Small fit into tight windows? Is that what you said? Small windows?
Something like
Is she a
that.
cat?
Kind of,
Jumping
yeah.
around on nimbly bimbly?
You could put her in your pocket and take her out whenever you want.
But it's like it's like the NFL Combine for mascots. They have to sing, they have to dance. K-State always has these people that are on stilts walking around the tailgate area. It's very dangerous.
Anyways, that's not Baby J. That's Big
Okay,
J because
Big
it's
J.
number 1. Baby J wears a half number.
God.
Number 1 would be Big J. But, yeah, you can check out all of those amazing items at Rally House. Go check out our friends at Rally House. All right, Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We've got West Virginia in an elimination game in the College World Series this afternoon. We'll be recapping that game tomorrow. But, of course, the Brendan Sorsby saga finally, graciously hitting its conclusion here has it's got us talking football, of all things, on a Big 12 Tuesday. James Wessling, now that we know for sure Brendan Sorsby will be playing 0 games for the Texas Tech Red Raiders this season, where does that put Texas Tech in your eyes? Are they still the favorites of the Big 12?
Yeah, it puts them still at number 1 preseason. The gap between Texas Tech and BYU last season is the first thing that stands out to me. If BYU had played a closer game in the Big 12 championship, maybe I would feel differently. But I think about this from the lens of, what if Texas Tech just simply had not signed Brendan Sorsby? What if they went after Sorsby and they went after Sam Leavitt and they talked to Josh Hoover and none of those guys ended up committing in Lubbock? How would I feel about Texas Tech now? I'd still feel pretty damn good. Will Hammond was the highest rated recruit to ever sign with Texas Tech at the quarterback position. He completed almost 64% of his passes. He had 7 touchdowns. He had 3 interceptions. The only thing with him is he's coming off that torn ACL. But he's ahead of his recovery timeline. And I'm not convinced Texas Tech can't survive the early part of their schedule without Lloyd Jones III at quarterback, who played in the West Virginia game last year, threw 2 touchdowns. Now I know it's late in the season, number 1, it's late in the game, it's mop-up duty, but the kid hit on 5 of 6 passes and threw 2 scores to Micah Hudson. Was that a glimpse into the future that we didn't see at the time? The talent level that Texas Tech has in the trenches is where I would start. Like, sure, maybe it's a little bit of a downgrade from an NFL caliber quarterback to Will Hammond when he's healthy. But remember, Texas Tech fans were calling for Will Hammond to be their quarterback after Week 5 last year. And all this time while he's going through the recovery process, he's studying. He's getting better in the film room. He's working on progressions. He's working on the playbook. All of those things, to me, just re-magnify that I don't think there's going to be that much of a drop-off.
Okay, so you think Tech, and the major reason for that is because of what BYU did against them last year. Sorry, what Tech did against BYU last year.
That's where, in my mind, that's where I start. But then I look at the depth charts. Then I look at where I think Texas Tech has upgraded from last season and where maybe there's a little bit of a downtick. And then I look at the quarterback position and how I would feel about it coming into this season if Sorsby was never in the conversation to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I think – so, number 1, BYU's offense, how much better will it be? It should be significantly better because Bear Bachmeier should be taking the next step. Now, it remains to be seen if he does, right? But the expectation is he will, and I have no reason to believe otherwise. I think BYU is the favorite of the Big 12 right now. And that's because of the continuity that BYU has that Texas Tech certainly does not have. Texas Tech has a lot of top-level talent, top-end talent. But it's very much a question mark how this team will play together, much in the same way it was last year. A question mark that was answered resoundingly. But I think heading into the season, you can't just assume that question marks that were answered positively last year will remain the same when you turn over a roster with the talent that they have. Plus, I think now the quarterback situation being where it is, and, like it or not, you have to break in Will Hammond. Forget about the injury. Put that to the side for a second. Hammond is still inexperienced. He still has to grow and make mistakes and grow from those mistakes. And we saw that at times last year. So I think, the more you start, the more you flush things out, the more defenses try to figure out other ways to make you uncomfortable, the more you've got to flush more things out, the more you've got to continue to evolve. So I just think the one piece that's a question for BYU is, can they replace Jay Hill? But they have the personnel to do it.
Mm-hmm.
For Texas Tech, it's a lot to replace. It's a lot to replace here.
I mean, 9 NFL draft picks is a lot to overcome. But Texas Tech has more returning production in terms of snaps, in terms of starts,
right,
than they had going into last season.
Yeah, and more than BYU.
When they just pounded everybody. And the combined score of those two, remember they played twice last year, of 63-14. I can't get that out of my mind. Texas Tech actually has more experience coming back on the offensive line than BYU. They have a better receiver room. They have a better running back room collectively, even though I do think LJ Martin is the best running back in terms of one guy in this conference. So then it comes down to the defensive side of the football, where BYU breaks in a new DC. Texas Tech will be year 2 of the Shieldwood era. And a lot of the portal guys defensively for Texas Tech are unknowns, right? We don't know how Trey White's going to translate. We don't know how Adam Trick is going to translate. Those are group of 5 or G6 transfers that, remember, last year Texas Tech on their defensive line, they were bringing in transfers from power conferences. We knew that Romello Height was a vicious get after the quarterback edge rusher. We knew what David Bailey was, played at Stanford, high-level competition. So there are more question marks there. But with Austin Romaine at linebacker, and then their entire secondary is back. Like, they lose Wisniewski to the NFL. He was a starter. But the guy that was his backup is back. They also play kind of this star position where they'll use either a linebacker or a nickel back. They have a ton of depth there. So I don't know that Texas Tech is going to match last season's numbers in terms of like the SP Plus and just the gap between Texas Tech and the rest of the league. But that to me says more about, I think the league is going to be better. I do think BYU is going to be better than they were last year. And I could see a third or fourth team like Arizona or Houston being a legitimate college football playoff at-large contender. 2 teams. If I were ranking like the top 15 teams in all of college football, I'd have 2 in the top 12 with Texas Tech and BYU coming into the season. And I see all these preseason polls and the aftermath of Sorsby and Texas Tech is like 17, 18, ranked 19th. Last year, they weren't even sniffing the top 25 preseason in these way too early polls, and look where they finished.
Yeah, I just, for me, this is going to be obviously a huge year for Joey McGuire, maybe even, way more so than last year, because you had to deal with all this off-season turmoil, and now you have to turn your attention towards a quarterback that you were not expecting to start. You just finished a spring where your presumptive starter had 3 touchdown passes and looked fantastic in the spring game, and now it's like, well, what do we do at quarterback, given we know Hammond's the future, but we don't know how quickly we're able to get him back, and how quickly do we rush him back, and can we get a guy ready to play? I also think it's really important to note here yet again that Brett Yormark did not do what's in the best interest of the Big 12. He did what's in the best interest of Big 12 members based on their wants, but ultimately Texas Tech having Brendan Sorsby was in the best interest of the Big 12. Not only did Texas Tech's chances of winning the Big 12 go up with it, their chances of winning playoff games went up with it. But in a world in which nobody is doing what's in the best interest of the sport, Brett Yormark did. He was the last line of defense for the entire sport against Sorsby playing, despite what everybody else or despite what Texas Tech wanted. Everybody wanted Sorsby to not be eligible to play. Yormark was the last line of defense here, and that should not go understated.
Yeah, he chose integrity over wins, which is essentially what this came down to.
And consensus, right? He had a league that was very ticked off.
And the other 15 member institutions, they're not naive to know and to think that Texas Tech is a national championship contender without Brendan Sorsby. They might be, but with Brendan Sorsby, absolutely, in terms of the product on the field, it was going to be better for Texas Tech. But how much is that drop off now? And we're talking about one position. Like, you get Quentin Joyner back at running back. You get a top 5 portal addition on the offensive line with Jordan Church. The wide receiver room is absolutely stacked. And I felt like last season that was an inefficiency that hurt them at times. Caleb Douglas, who was drafted in, the 3rd round? he was really inconsistent last year. He'd either blow up for like a $150 or he'd catch 1 or 2 passes. This year, you have 4 or 5 guys that are going to play in the NFL. Bubble screens, check, like however you get them the ball. There are so many weapons that I don't know that it matters as much at a place like Texas Tech as it would at another school in the Big 12 that really needs that quarterback to go out and win them games.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. You can give us your opinion on the Brennan Sorsby saga and how this ended at YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Big 12 Conference and live stream our show, which you can live stream each and every day on YouTube, as well as Roku, Amazon Prime Video, Tubi, DirecTV Stream. Just go to Big12Studios.com to find all the platforms in which you can find Big 12 Studios. And, of course, you can always download the TuneIn app and listen to us there each and every single day via the TuneIn app. And today, following Big 12 Today's replay at 1 o'clock Central, you get the road to Arlington, Cincinnati. That was the series we did covering Cincinnati's path to Arlington. Then you also have Iowa State at 2 o'clock. And then the consensus today at 3 o'clock. We're getting a consensus on number 13 as we moved to our latest off-season series. Because remember, Modelo fan rule number 99, the off-season does not mean off. It just means research. That's what we've been doing this entire off-season. So at the top of the next hour, we're going to be hitting on the consensus, in which we, or rather an hour from now, I should say, we're going to be hitting on the consensus. We try to get a consensus round pick, team number 13 in the Big 12. We already have Cincinnati at 15, consensus on Iowa State at 14, and Cincinnati at 15 and Kansas at 14. We'll figure out who 13 is today. All right, Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Last week, we power ranked the top 5 position groups in the Big 12 overall. So would any of those crack a top 10 in college football? One writer says no. We get into that next. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio.
Still looking downfield, and it's intercepted. Intercepted. Trayden Stukes, first of all, made a great play to pick that one off.
Be successful. Pick up the blitz. Salter's in trouble. The game is really moving too fast for him right now. Stukes again comes through to get him on a loss of 2.
He's got time. His pass to the sideline is intercepted. Trayden Stukes with a purloined pigskin.
Robertson has to check it down. And again, Arizona is there to crunch it. Trayden Stukes leads the defense.
Johnson is hit, and he is dropped. Trayden Stukes was shot out of a cannon.
He's ready to pressure because the safety got him capped. And what's he do? Runs through the back and gets to Avery Johnson.
Sawyer Robertson looking for the lead. Intercepted instead. Trayden Stukes on his senior day.
I just got to say, man, Tim Fitzgerald, he's the best. James Westling, Ari Tepkin, our friend Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com has been battling a very public, has been battling very publicly with prostate cancer over the years. Still puts in an incredible amount of work. And he was tweeting last night about how he's had some complications, had to go to the hospital. And so I've just been texting with him this morning. And, I mean, just the, sense of humor he continues to have. He's amazing, man. I aspire in a situation like that to remain as cool, calm, collected as he is. It really is inspiring.
He was we all have that first sports broadcasting idol or mentor or somebody that you met at a young age that you remember that had a tremendous impact. Fitz was that for me. I was a student at Kansas State doing student radio, and he went out of his way to introduce himself, to make sure that when we would cross paths at high-profile events where the students are just kind of an afterthought and running around, he just always made me feel like part of the K-State community and family. And he's got an incredible sense of humor. He's dry. He's hilarious. And, you're right, he has not lost that in any way, shape, or form. And he's also been, a spokesperson for this battle.
Yes.
And this prostate cancer that he has gone through. He has not been shy about updates. He has not been shy about the struggles that come with it. And then he's been very outspoken about the mental aspect and what he's up against in terms of depression and anxiety. And he's crushing it. This is a perfect example of an unfortunate situation, and that's underselling it, that he has handled with class and grace and dignity. Unlike another situation that we've talked about this morning, and I'll leave it at that.
That's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. It's funny in a way because last Wednesday we power ranked the top 5 position groups across the Big 12. And a few days after that, Brad Crawford from CBS Sports released his list of the top position groups across college football. 'Tis the season. It is list season.
My favorite season.
Well, my favorite season is the season itself.
I like the season too.
But there is not one single Big 12 program that appears on this list of the nation's 10 best positional groups. They are Ohio State wide receivers at 1. Hard to argue with that one. Oregon defensive line at 2. Notre Dame secondary at 3. Texas wide receivers at 4. Indiana offensive line at 5. Ole Miss backfield at 6. Georgia linebackers at 7. Miami backfield at 8. Texas O-line 9. And Alabama secondary 10. So if you're counting along, that's 2 Texas position groups. 1 Ole Miss, 1 Notre Dame, 1 Georgia, 1 Alabama, 1 Miami, 1 Oregon, 1 Ohio State. Is that fair?
I'm fine with it because, number one, there's a ton of variety. I don't see one juggernaut standing out. One position group does not win you games in the college football playoffs. If there is a position group that's above all, I lean offensive line. So I look there. Would a Big 12 position group had been on this list at the end of last season? Do you think would we have seen Texas Tech linebackers or Cincinnati offensive line or BYU secondary at the end of last season? I would argue no. It's part of the narrative. It's part of what the Big 12 is up against. But one position group does not win you a national championship or games in the college football playoff. And I do think there are position groups in the Big 12 that could crack this list and be fully justified.
Yeah, I mean, the first one to me is Georgia linebackers at 7. BYU linebackers, to me, should be on this list, especially over the Georgia linebackers at 7. I mean, you lose C.J. Allen. You do bring back Wilson, but other than that, you've just got a bunch of unproven 5-star recruits coming in. And basically, Crawford's even justification for putting Georgia in that spot was, Kirby Smart's credibility. I mean, you asked the question, would any of these position groups be ranked in this list at the end of last season? I'd argue BYU's linebackers would.
Yeah. BYU or Texas Tech. Both.
Yeah. But I mean, BYU's like what Texas Tech lost. And I know they gained back a ton, but like what BYU brings back in its secondary and linebackers, I don't know how they wouldn't be on this list. And again, like, yeah, Georgia's got credibility from Kirby Smart's defenses historically, sure, but like, what about the experienced players coming back? Isn't that part of this exercise?
Right. The guys that actually graded out as some of the top players in the country from Pro Football Focus. Like Texas Tech and BYU, the linebackers in the Big 12, if I was to highlight two positions, one on each side of the ball, I'd go Big 12 receivers. It is a deep, deep, deep conference this year at the wideout position. And linebackers. That's where I see the most NFL talent. Now, what's going to ultimately determine the fate of the Big 12 conference when it comes to the college football playoff is going to be in the trenches. Has the Big 12 upped its game enough on the line of scrimmage, on the offensive line and the defensive line? Because everywhere else, I don't have a ton of concerns. There's high-quality quarterback play. There's high-quality running backs. And the linebackers in the secondaries are elite. Like Jacob Rodriguez was the most talked about linebacker in all of college football last season. In an NFL draft where you don't draft linebackers, he still goes middle of the second round. Well, this year, John Curry, who was kind of his sidecar last year, is the highest-rated NFL prospect, but he's not even the best linebacker on their team. That would go to Ben Roberts, who ESPN just put together their comprehensive season preview. They said Ben Roberts is the number one player in the Big 12 most likely to win a postseason award, the Butkus Award. And then you've got Austin Romaine, who NFL scouts were so excited about 2 years ago, graded out higher than Jacob Rodriguez, but he only played in 8 games last year and missed the back third of the season with an injury. He's healthy now. And then with Glasgow and the other guys coming back, and I would argue BYU's secondary could make this list. So, yeah, there's plenty of positions that would be fully justified, but you're right. Like with Georgia, they identify the linebackers. They talk about Cole and Williams, two highly touted recruits who have developed.
Again, or need to develop against a BYU program from a linebacker standpoint that has those guys. I mean, has those guys already developed. Isaiah Glasgow is an NFL pick. I think the BYU offensive line, you might make a case for them in being in and over Indiana's offensive line. I think you can make a case that Arizona State's wide receivers should be higher on this list.
Totally.
I mean, and it's. I think Brad Crawford does a really good job, but I think he applies a production and retention standard to the Big Ten of the SEC that does not apply consistently to the Big 12. Period. They're experienced returning players in this group, and then when it comes to the Big 12, nowhere to be found. The experience, proven production doesn't matter, and especially BYU guys. Like this continues to be the main storyline here. The Big 12 is underrated. BYU is severely underrated.
Yes.
Oh, you won 11 games last year? They won 12 games last year? 11 wins last year?
12 with the bowl game.
Yeah, 12 with the bowl game, 11 in the regular season. Nobody's won more college football games in the Big 12 over the last 2 years than BYU. You would not know that if you didn't pay attention.
And there's no other program in the history of the preseason AP Top 25 that has finished higher than they were ranked in the preseason than BYU. And that applies to their short window of Big 12 membership, which is a 3-year sample size. Then the other thing, I think some of the transfers in the Big 12 get overlooked or undervalued because they didn't transfer from Georgia and Alabama and LSU. Cade Ulave, who's maybe the number one defensive portal player on the market in terms of the linebacker position, transferred from Cal.
Yeah.
Well, he was first-team All-ACC. Most ACC coaches said he was the best linebacker in the league. Better than Florida State linebackers, better than Clemson linebackers, better than Miami linebackers, and he had over 100 tackles. But he comes from Cal, and he transfers to BYU.
But see, and this is the kind of stuff that, like, you think doesn't matter, but, individually probably doesn't from the discourse standpoint. But collectively, in the aggregate, like, this kind of stuff adds up to where, like, suddenly people are surprised by BYU this season. It's like, oh, they came from nowhere. No, they didn't. We should recognize the great BYU linebackers. Like, if you're Brad Crawford, are you doing the full work here, or are you just looking at the position groups for the SEC, the Big Ten, and then a few select ACC schools to decide who the winners are here? Like, his standard for why he put Indiana on this list, you can make the exact same case and better for BYU. Alabama's secondary at 10 is almost as if he needed somebody from Alabama in order to make this list for it to be justified. Mm-hmm. Texas Tech secondary is way better than Alabama's. What are we talking about here? But it just speaks to the, like, all these little individual jabs of the Big 12 lead to the larger discourse, which is the Big 12's not any good. Why? Well, because I've been reading all these off-season previews, and nobody ever mentions the Big 12 or Big 12 schools in it. I mean, we continue to break apart lists made on national platforms purporting to be covering nationally that aren't. They are more incentivized, CBS and ESPN and all of those platforms, to talk about the SEC and the Big Ten than they are to talk about the Big 12 because of the eyeballs. And so all of their off-season lists, unless they're written by Shahan J. Raja, are going to be geared towards the Big Ten of the SEC.
Right. And the Big 12, the biggest moment for this upcoming season, to me, is the BYU-Notre Dame game. Because, number one, it's in Provo. Taman and I were talking about this when you were on vacation. Just the opportunity that the league has to showcase how awesome these home crowd environments are. Notre Dame has not played in venues, in atmospheres like this. Their road games last year were at Arkansas, at Boston College, at Pitt, at Stanford. The year before, very similar. Probably the biggest opponent is at USC, but that's not a true college tradition, pageantry, tailgating environment like the Notre Dame fans are going to experience when they go to Provo. And then also, like Notre Dame, the meat of their schedule is always at the front, right? Last year they played Miami and Texas A&M. So by the end of the year, they're healthy once they get into the college football playoff and they make runs. BYU getting Notre Dame mid-October, when both teams should still be relatively healthy, that's the toughest late-season game that Notre Dame will have played in years. I think BYU is going to beat Notre Dame, and that's number one. Like, the next step for the Big 12 we talk a lot about is to win a game in the college football playoff or get multiple teams in the college football playoff. Well, I would argue that BYU beating Notre Dame could have the same type of impact on the narrative and the perception of the league.
But the issue is, to me, it feels like many of these types of articles just continue to jab at the Big 12 as a reason for why the conference won't get a second bid. Mm-hmm. Well, because the conference isn't any good. Why? Well, because I read all offseason about how they don't have any good position groups, or, you know, their best quarterback is 25th on the list of top quarterbacks in the country, right? Like, just continually pounding the narrative nationally from multiple publications to pounding the same drum, because they know you go to the well with the Big Ten of the SEC, you're going to get more viewership.
Yeah. And when Big 12 quarterbacks transfer to Big 10 or SEC programs, all of a sudden they're top 5 or top 8 quarterbacks in the country with Leavitt and Hoover. Notre Dame is, I saw a way too early, I think it was ESPN. ESPN's ranking all 68 power conference teams preseason. Notre Dame was the number 1 ranked team in the country. Like, there could be a scenario where Notre Dame goes to Provo as the number 1 ranked team in the nation. So set all the Notre Dame is Notre Dame stuff aside. You get the opportunity to play a non-conference game against a top 5 team. That is huge for the Big 12. And it's huge in that BYU's got to be in that game. Getting crushed by Notre Dame, sad panda on Monday morning.
Yeah, but just unfortunately, knowing the history of BYU here, it feels like a win or nothing helps you, even though in other situations a similar dynamic would help the losing team.
Yeah, the narrative would be, oh, Notre Dame didn't bring their A game. Notre Dame played awful, but Notre Dame still got out of Provo with a win. It wouldn't be, hey, BYU's pretty legit.
Yeah, that defense is pretty good, holding that offense in check. On the way next, with James Westling, I'm Ari Tepkin. It's valid or void. Will the Big 12 have 10 first-round picks in the NBA draft next week? Plus, will Brendan Sorsby be higher than a 4th-round supplemental pick? All of that on the way next. In Valid or Void, this is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Blitz coming, jailbreak, and they run the perfect play. It's small, he's big, he's down, inside the 5 to the 1. B.J. Payne tripped him up to save the touchdown. What an effort here.
And there it is. A
fake the handoff and to the backside. And another tackle for loss at the 20, this time by VJ Payne. They tried to get the man on the edge on the far side, and VJ was having none of it.
That play, and it's always about how you finish.
Kobe Williams hit by Payne. Second down. And he'll make you pay. Handoff. Parker gets stuffed, stays on his feet, and now is going to go down.
12th play of the drop. Hands off to Hishaw. Steps to an ankle tackle and rumbles below the 30. VJ Payne finally got him to the turf.
Kansas State going to try and put some pressure on it. Floor steps up, floats one toward the end zone, does not have a receiver there. And that's an interception to end the half. VJ Payne with his first interception of the year.
4th downs this year. A big one in this second half. Brown stopped originally, and the ball comes out. Is the play dead, though? The whistles came after the ball came out.
$14 in our preseason poll. James independently ranked the Big 12 teams 1 through 16. I did too. Now we're coming together to argue for a consensus and we will hit number 13 coming up in about 30 minutes from now. It's time now, though, for a little Valid or Void. With that in mind, let's welcome in our producer, T-Chainz, Taman Turner. He asks us questions. We decide if they're valid or void. Taman?
What's up, guys? So my first topic, we've been talking a lot of football in the first hour. I'm going to shift over to basketball. The draft is 1 week away, and there was a report that came out that said that Darren Peterson only plans to meet with the Washington Wizards, which, as you guys both know, have the number 1 pick in the draft. So, valid or void? Darren Peterson will be the number 1 overall draft pick for the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, I'd say this is valid. I also don't necessarily think, not meeting with other teams is a bad thing. I mean, look, if it hurts his draft status, ultimately then he could fall to a spot that ends up becoming a better spot for him. But somebody's going to take him even without meeting him. I think, the job interview is one of the funniest things ever because I just think from an ego standpoint, people believe they could pick out things within a job interview that are tells for certain things about people. But the reality is I think job interviews can skew reality in many ways. It's almost like a confirmation bias thing. Like, if I like this person, then I'm going to use his answers as a reason to like him and vice versa. So I digress. I think meeting in person is overrated. Not to say you don't need to meet with them, but I don't think it's the most valuable data point here. And, I'm not surprised at all by this being the move from Darren Peterson. Are you?
Well, AI can't bounce a basketball, Ari. Man, I miss the Washington Wizards when they were the teal and gold, like Gilbert Arenas era, late MJ.
I miss when they were the Washington Bullets.
Those were the good old days. What were the 60s like? Tell me more. So this whole, Peterson is going number 1 thing, this is very much a narrative being pushed by his camp. And I get it. It's a strategic move. But just because Peterson's camp thinks he's going number 1 doesn't mean that the Wizards feel the same way. So I'm going to void this because the Wizards have the entire NBA believing that A.J. DeBonce is going number 1, that Darren Peterson is going number 1, and that Cameron Boozer is going number 1. So it's been a brilliant managing of the narratives and the perception. I don't see A.J. DeBonce doing anything that drops his draft stock from being the number 1 overall pick. And did you see the nugget about Peterson's camp? They would prefer him to go to Memphis at number 3. They don't want to go to Utah at number 2. The camps don't make the picks. Ace Bailey did the same thing last year, and it didn't matter. Remember, he canceled a bunch of workouts. He's like, I'm going to this team. I'm only going to work out for the Sixers.
So you mean if you decide I only want to work out or meet with this team, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the team that's going to take you?
Spoiler alert, it don't matter. Ace Bailey still gets drafted by the Jazz, which, by the way, it all worked out.
By the way,
Played for the Jazz and had a very productive rookie season.
This dude's entire life has been about his team securing the softest landing spot for him in every situation. His entire life, his parents and his team have been around to soften, have been around to pave the way. Well, guess what? Those days are over.
They gone.
They gone. If last year was any indication of it, this to me is the greatest indication that these people haven't learned anything. They've learned nothing.
When I saw this, I thought this is the most Darren Peterson thing I've ever seen in my life.
Did last year happen? Did we watch that? Did that happen? Did he play in however many games?
I have to ask this hypothetical.
Remember when you guys thought it was too early that I was complaining about that? It was too early in the season for complaints?
Yeah, nice.
We did complain. I have to ask this hypothetical. If if Adam Silver says next week that the Washington Wizards are drafting A.J. DeBonce, does Darren Peterson's family finally have a humble moment?
No.
Yeah, no. Those don't exist.
No, it's Washington's fault. Remember, nothing is their fault or responsibility. Everything else is other people's fault and responsibility. That's how this works, Damon. Surprised you didn't know that already. Good question, though. What would it take for his family and people around him to be grounded in reality? Maybe they need a little Andrew Wiggins in their life.
The dude's going to be a bother, though.
Is he?
Yes.
You see more Michael Jordan or Andrew Wiggins? Which one do you see?
MJ, more
he gonna
MJ.
play?
But that's my biggest thing. How many games is he actually going to play? Is he going to have an injury-plagued career?
Yes. Yeah, when the
Thank
dude has not been
Jesus,
asked to
Rams.
play in every game throughout his career.
Even
then-
in high school, he was missing games.
Yeah. So you can't suddenly just turn that on, right? Like you've been. He literally could not make it through the off-season training that gets you in shape to play the season.
Yeah.
This whole mess started with cramps that came about because of the boot camp that Bill Self put him through that was too difficult. Honestly, that may be the biggest reason why I don't take him number 1 if I'm Washington.
Yes,
You couldn't make it through boot camp?
absolutely.
You know, we play 82 up here, son.
Boot camp and you were 18.
No, it's DeBonsa.
That's scary.
The injury stuff started, to your point, the very first game of the year they opened up against Green Bay. I remember us discussing how many minutes will Darren Peterson play.
Can we do something? Can we all make a promise here as a show? The draft is a week from tomorrow. Okay? We'll react on Thursday. Friday. The date of Friday is the 26th. Let's put a moratorium on Darren Peterson on this show.
Like you just don't want to talk Peterson
Just
at all?
let's not. We cannot talk about him. We cannot discuss him
Let's see if we
unless
can,
he falls to the Bulls at 4,
which could happen.
which is my team. There's
That could happen.
It's possible.
if that happens, by the way, we're
Or the
all
Bulls
Darren
trade
Peterson
up.
all the time.
The Bulls trade up.
God.
Can we get through a segment talking Darren Peterson without using the word cramps, injury, plagued, camp?
As of Friday, June 26th, we are no longer permitted to talk about Darren Peterson on this show.
Unless he's drafted by the Bulls.
No, even then, I'm just joking. There's a moratorium on Peterson. Period. End of story.
Bro-
Done.
If he gets drafted by the Bulls, remember, I didn't have an NBA team growing up. It was the Bulls.
Yeah.
I will be right there with you, losing my marbles. I'll come to work Monday in a Darren Peterson Chicago jersey.
How sick of a person am I, though? Of all of the frustrations that I just felt and dealt with over the course of the last year dealing with this, and I'm like inviting more of it. Like, yeah, bring it on.
Because he's
I'm
so
asking
good.
for it.
He's so talented.
Is he, though?
Yes.
Yeah, he is.
Did you watch the games?
He
Good
is.
Lord.
It's the cycle of
When he
being
plays,
a
he
sports
looks
guy.
like he's playing at 40%, and he's way better than anybody else on the floor.
Yeah, but it's everything else.
I know.
It's everything else.
Ari has a very toxic relationship with Darren Peterson.
I have a very toxic relationship with the Bulls, so it actually would work out
You
perfectly.
don't have to like the player. You just have to like the game.
I've heard that said a different way.
Don't hate the player. Don't hate the game.
For the record, just a correction: the draft is 1 week from today, not tomorrow.
Oh, it's today.
1 week.
It's next Tuesday.
Yes,
Not next Wednesday.
correct.
You're right. I thought for some reason it's the 23rd and 24th. I had in my mind
Does
Wednesday.
the NBA
and
do the
Thursday.
whole thing in one night?
No.
No.
That's what I thought. 2
2
nights.
nights.
That second round.
First
It's
round is, yeah.
electric. Electric.
Hey, Jalen Brunson.
That's true.
There's always one.
I
or
remember
two-
that very well.
There's always one or two guys. And granted, it's usually not more than that, but there's always one or two guys taken in the second round that turn into all-stars.
Tyrese Halliburton. No, he was not. He was.
He was a lottery pick.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic.
Jokic.
There are those guys, and so that's the only reason why I watched the second round.
By the way, do you know this? Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson were taken in the same draft by the Mavs. Do you know that?
By who?
The Mavs.
Mavericks.
The Dallas Mavericks
Dallas team?
drafted both Luka and Jalen Brunson in the same draft.
Did they?
I don't know if you knew that.
I-
Did you know that, Taman?
Breaking news. I didn't know that.
And here's the other thing.
They don't play there.
Neither of them are on the team anymore. Did you know that?
How did they,
I just found that out. Wow.
feels like they were in the the finals like yesterday. They just completely imploded that roster.
Does it, though?
Does to me.
Ugh.
Yesterday, Taman. Yesterday.
All right, next topic. So next Tuesday we are going to have Brian Thornton on. You know, he's going to be discussing the Big 12's big day in the NBA draft. So valid or void, the Big 12 will have 10 first-round draft picks. Remember, we know about Darren Peterson, A.J. DeBonta, Kingston Flemings, Braden Burries. But what about the rest of the pack? Valid or void?
10? I got to avoid this, T.
Void.
Yeah, Taman, I've got to 9. Now, for the league to get 10, it means somebody like Baba Miller from Cincinnati would need to go late first. It means Jaden Bradley would need to go late first. Other Big 12 guys projected to be taken in the second round include Milos Uzan, Trey White from Kansas, Richie Saunders from BYU. Those are second-round guys.
Yeah, so
one of those have to pop into the first round to get to 10.
DeBonsa, Peterson, Flemings, Burries, Carr, Pete, Anderson, Sinak, Yesufu.
Well, Yesufu's going to St. John's.
Good point.
Yeah, he's not in this
So
draft.
that's 8.
Did you say Christian Anderson?
Anderson.
Joshua Jefferson.
That's the one I
That's
missed.
the one you missed.
That would be 8.
His stock is soaring, by the way. He's having a very good boot camp, for lack of a better phrase.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm going to avoid this. I would say 8 is probably the number to hit. Over under 7.5 would be the right number for the Big 12.
I think we get 8. I do. The other guy whose stock is rising is Cameron Carr, the Baylor swingman who's like 6'5", but has a
Swing forward.
Thank you. Has a 7'8" wingspan. He's like Wemby, but 6'5".
Yeah, right. Doesn't Wemby have an 8-foot wingspan?
Yep, probably like 9 feet.
It almost feels like Wemby has a smaller wingspan than he should.
You heard about those Giants up in Canada? I'll tell you more later. 8'11".
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, they exist. Bunch of Wembys walking around up there.
That's actually like a foot, almost 2 feet taller than Wemby. Do they play basketball? Are they human? Are they
No,
robots?
They arm wrestle. No, they're big.
And they're Canadians?
Huge.
8'11"? What are you saying?
Way up there. Way up there.
I'm gonna have to do some research here.
All right, guys, there's a College World Series that's still taking place, and there's a game today. West Virginia and Troy, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. Valid or void, it's not time to throw in the towel just yet on West Virginia baseball, even though it's an elimination game.
Valid. I mean, they beat Troy already. All you gotta do is beat the same team you already beat, and you're on to North
Play
Carolina.
North Carolina, who you have to beat twice.
Have to beat them twice.
I hate to be a negative, Nick, but I've got to avoid this too. I know.
Why do you hate the Big 12?
I hate
Why
sports.
do you hate?
I hate sports.
You hate sports. You hate the Big 12. You hate West
And
Virginia.
Pat McAfee.
You
Even though
do.
he's a saint.
Documented.
He is a saint. No, he's a great guy. I look at North Carolina, like West Virginia, they have a really good left tackle and a really good left guard, talking about their pitching rotation. But, like, the right side of the offensive line, it's not there. North Carolina's got 5.
I thought I was about to have to like smack you upside the head. I was like
Yeah,
I
I
need a restart, hard reboot on the
Where
software.
are we going?
The comparison is
I got it. It was-
pitching staff,
initially I was
offensive line.
like, oh no, he's glitching.
He's talking.
He's glitching. Oh god, what do I do?
Sleep. Dolphins don't sleep. North Carolina's got like a massive offensive line that is their pitching staff. When they can roll out a freshman and he's just nails in game 1, like you get into this best of 3 scenarios, the deeper staffs are the teams that advance.
All right, Brad Crawford.
Brad Light.
Wow.
Anti-Big 12 Brad Crawford here.
By the way, once upon a time, Ari said you were an SEC plant. I'm starting to wonder.
A spy?
I wonder. The conspiracy theory.
SEC, ACC,
Yeah,
you're a
he's
plant. 100%.
All right.
I would embrace that so much.
He's a plant from ESPN,
I
and we
want to
knew
be
it.
a Big 12 plant. That's how I feel when I'm going to do SEC games, though. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. Then I'm like, tell me everything.
Tell me your secrets.
What's going on, guys?
All right.
Tell you everything about Buckyball you need to know.
Next one. Valid or void. You guys been talking Texas Tech. Texas Tech will not win the Big 12 championship in 2026.
I feel like we've done this a million times.
But it changes all the time. No source be for good.
Valid means they will not win the Big 12.
Correct.
I got to avoid it.
Oh, sorry. I was waiting on you.
No, I got to avoid it. I got to avoid it. 20 minutes ago, I just laid out the reasons why they will win the Big 12 championship. 63-14, the combined score in the 2 meetings last year against BYU. Texas Tech has not regressed as a roster.
You know that
If
there are
anything-
14 other teams in the Big 12, yes?
Yes,
Okay.
I do know that.
Okay.
And Texas Tech's schedule is maybe the lightest in the league. That's the other thing. These other teams are going to cannibalize one another. Texas Tech's just going to cruise. They could even lose a game in the regular season, like they did last year. But it was never really a discussion the final 3 weeks of the season. Is Texas Tech not going to play in the big? No. They were boat racing people. And it'll be the same. The only difference is Brendan Sorsby maybe gave them a chance to go deeper in the college football playoff. But this roster is very much built like last year. Offensive and defensive lines, secondary, linebackers, elite defense. The quarterback doesn't play on defense, so they're going to be fine.
Yeah. I'm going to validate this. Texas Tech will not win the Big 12. I don't think they're as prepared at the quarterback position. I think they told us as much by going out and getting Sorsby. They told us as much by rigorously defending Sorsby in the face of overwhelming opposition. Hammond's not ready.
All right, final one, rapid fire, guys. Valid or void? Speaking of Sorsby, Brendan Sorsby will be higher than a 4th round comp pick in the NFL draft.
So remember how the compensatory draft works? Basically, every team that wants him needs to submit a draft round, and whoever has the highest draft round wins. And then they forfeit their pick in that round the next year. So will anybody submit higher than a 4th round? I'm talking 3rd, 2nd, or 1st round for Brendan Sorsby. I'll say 4th is probably the round that he goes in. Somebody's going to get a 1st round talent in the 4th round, but I think that right now the leverage is firmly on the side against Sorsby here. He badly needed a data point or data points from this year, resume for this year, to sort of prove his value. He doesn't have it. Now all you have to go off of is 2 collapses in the month of November and this huge gambling cloud that will hang over your franchise. Who wants to invite that?
Yeah, I will validate this. I think there's a chance he goes in the 3rd round. I'm with you that the 4th round's probably more likely, but if I were to pick a different side, 3rd or 5th round, I would lean 3rd. And it has nothing to do with his talent. Absolutely, he's worth a 2nd or 3rd round pick talent-wise. And the supplemental draft is really unique. Like, all of these teams just basically submit their bids via email. It's done in like 2 minutes.
It's crazy.
But when you look at
You think it's this whole process?
Yeah. The penalties for gambling on the NFL side, I think, is something that's been overlooked. Everybody that's bet when playing in the NFL, they've been suspended at least a full season. Now, the only caveat is Jameson Williams. He was only suspended 6 games because he
Jameson? What'd you just call him?
Williams, you know who I'm talking about.
Jameson Williams. Did you just confuse him with Jameson Curry, the former Oklahoma State guard?
Baller guard.
Everybody else goes by Jameson.
No.
Jameson's the only one that goes by Jameson.
He had a capital O. He bet 6 games on his phone, mobile betting, while he was inside the practice facility. He got 6 games. But is this more that, or is this more like Calvin Ridley-esque, who bet $1,500 and was suspended for an entire season?
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Let's check in with our buddy Christian Jackjian, college basketball analyst for Enjoy Basketball. We'll get his take on the draft, and will Peterson be the number 1 overall pick? It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio.
Rebound Volleyder on sequence. 5 seconds left. Knocked away. It's Anderson. It's a 3. And it goes! Righteous! How about that for an exclamation? Number 4. That's a 3-point shot, but they may start making 4-point shots for him if he keeps doing that, Chris.
You see Bamboya right there, he alters it. It doesn't count as a block, but he's got McKaylee thinking about it.
Oh, Christian Anderson looked at Toppin, but the no-look pass inside to Bamboya. Shot clock running down. Does Anderson know it? Hits it!
He had no choice but to put it up, and he knocks it down. Christian Anderson has ice water in his veins.
Anderson fires underneath, and the slam by Mosley. Larry off the balance.
Pass.
Anderson rising up with 2 hands.
Christian Anderson getting up plus the foul.
He has scored the last 14 points for Texas Tech. He's in his bag. Crossover, gets the man in the air, floats it up, and it bounces in. Have a half, Mr. Anderson. 25 points.
Get to his second, third option, step back, and then step through. And it's been that kind of afternoon. The touch on display. Anderson, wow.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Let's welcome in Christian Jackjian, our good friend from Enjoy Basketball, who does a great job at covering college basketball. Talking NBA draft with Christian. How are you?
Good. Great to be back with you guys. It's been a minute.
Yeah, no kidding. It's great to have you back. All right, so we're a week away from the NBA draft. Will Darren Peterson go number 1?
I'm leaning yes. I'm starting to lean yes. So Darren and AJ's camp definitely both think they're going 1. They're both trying to go 1. The most interesting framework I've heard of this, I think it was Jonathan Givony who said this, but that Kansas BYU game in January, right? Let's say Darren after that game shut it down for the season and did not try to play. There was no news about his commitment level, his injuries, just everything that went on with his situation. He's the guaranteed number 1 pick, right? What we saw of him to that point was just absolutely unreal from a guard prospect. And you have to give AJ so much credit for how, kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, he was playing these huge minutes and carrying this BYU team, especially once Richie Saunders went down. And AJ showed you all the reasons why he deserves to be a number 1 pick in the draft as well. But the more I dig into it and you go back to some of the high school stuff, I do think Darren is the better prospect, but I can understand, people shying away from, the stuff about his camp or what comes with drafting Darren. Could you be getting not just the elite basketball prospect? Are you getting, is it just not the type of guy that you want to be number 1? I think that might have been blown out of proportion a little bit. The more intel we've gotten on what really happened this Kansas season. So if Darren is able to get back some of that explosiveness from high school, which from everything that I'm hearing is the expectation, I think he's the best prospect in the draft. And I also think he fits the Wizards better. I know you don't really want to draft for fit, but I could see you just kind of plugging him in right away and then being a playoff team next year.
Yeah, so what are some of those things when you say, intel into what happened during his season at Kansas and his camp and everything outside of just his play on the floor? Why do you think the Wizards are, I guess, essentially not bothered by that?
Yeah, I mean, Darren's all hoop, right? And you have to put yourself in the shoes of the young man and his family, and you know how much money he's going to make at the NBA level. So is it selfish to put your health above your team, whether you're the number 1 pick or not? No. I mean, maybe a little bit. Of course, when you are able to power through an injury for your team and you are, able to show your character like that and your toughness, that's great and everything. But at the end of the day, it is 1 season at Kansas. Bill Self knew that. The Kansas fans knew that, right? And Darren obviously showed by the fact that he was in and out when he wasn't feeling himself, when he wasn't 100%, right? He still was trying. And sure, it's a bad look when he hits a 3 against Oklahoma State and taps Bill and he takes him out of the game. It opened him up to a lot of criticism. But are we going to look silly in a few years when Darren is, there's a chance he's clearly the best player in the class and he's, an all-NBA player in the next few years. So if he got character concerns labeled on him or drama, I don't want to deal with that kind of, if that gets just misconstrued, you might be just making a really big mistake if you're Washington to not take Darren Peterson 1.
Yeah. Look, I will say it is selfish to look out for your own best self-interest. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I don't have an issue with it, but it is selfish inherently.
Yes.
All right, so how does the rest of the draft go if Peterson does go 1 versus how does the draft go if it does not go with Peterson 1?
I have a tough time imagining AJ and Cam not being the next 2 picks. I know there's been murmurs about Caleb potentially going higher, but I think Utah is very interesting, especially what we saw last year where Ace Bailey's I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
There's some game of will someone move up and grab him, but Utah kind of held their cards close to their chest. They've made some moves that no one thought they were going to trade for Jaren Jackson Jr., right? They've done some interesting things. So, and they're tied to AJ and Cam Boozer for different reasons. So you could see them being thrilled with either of those guys, but for AJ to go from presumed number 1 for a while to all of a sudden not a top 2 pick when he's clearly still in contention for 1 at this point, it would be wild if Cam went 2 and AJ fell all the way to 3. But I really think a lot is still in play. And I know 2 of these guys from the Big 12 and 1 isn't, but I love Boozer, and I'm one of the people who think if you love Boozer and you want to take him 1, I have zero issue with that. And I think the whole capped ceiling idea is just a mistake we've just seen in draft years. And I understand the league's completely changed, but like imagine if Tim Duncan didn't go 1 because he didn't have a high enough ceiling, or like you couldn't have really projected Steph Curry's ceiling when he was drafted, right? Like the idea of being able to project ceiling accurately. Like sure, you can say Nate Ament has a high ceiling because he's 6'10" and can dribble, pass, shoot, but like who says Christian Anderson, can't be some, not saying he's going to be Steph Curry, but some like incredible point guard just because you're like, oh, but he's not twitching enough off the bounce. And he's not dunking on everybody, which low-key he did a couple times. But the point is, I think it would be, it's too simpleton of a mindset to be like, oh, Darren AJ obviously have more upside than Cam Boozer. I'm not necessarily sure that that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, too, about Steph Curry. Like, what was his ceiling before the draft?
Totally. And it was really all centered around 2 or 3 games in the NCAA tournament. I saw Christian Anderson take a ball at midcourt late in a half at Baylor, go roaring into the lane and hammer it. I had no idea that he had those kind of hops. And I see like ESPN's latest mock draft or projecting the top all 60 picks. They've got him at number 16 to the Memphis Grizzlies. Is he the biggest like mover so far in terms of guys that were projected to be like mid to late first round that you've seen?
Anderson's really interesting to me. I think he could go anywhere from early teens to like early 20s, honestly, just because there are so many guards in this class. And I'm like a big fan of guys like Phylon and Okori. In some teams, like this tier of bigs and wings of Ament, Yaxel, Kareem Lopez, Merez, Steinbach. People think Alan Graves, Sanak, like there's Quaintance. I think it's interesting to it always is interesting with the draft of need versus best available, right? Because sometimes I like a lot of these guards more than I like some of the picks, but it would be wild if like 10 of the first 16 picks are, guards. So we'll see. In terms of a riser, I have one that you guys will love on the show. How about Baba Miller? Baba Miller is going to push at least early second round, I think. The way he was shooting the ball at the combine and his size. He was supposed to be a one and done his freshman year. He shot, 19% from 3 this year. But he was a dude I was at the combine that I was super impressed with. Has all the measurables. Obviously, Cincinnati was a great defensive team. And what about Jaden Bradley? I think Jaden Bradley is worth a look at the end of the first round or the early second. There's so many great vet guards in this class. I love Jacoby Gillespie from Tennessee, Bruce Thornton from Ohio State, maybe Braden Smith. But of all of those smaller guards, Bradley's the biggest of those guys I mentioned. But he is such a dog. He is such a winner. And the way that he just controls tempo and guards and the way his trajectory throughout college, he might be my favorite bet of those vet guards to carve out a real role in the league.
Who do you think will be the biggest surprise pick in this draft, whether it's a player or a team?
As in a player who ends up going earlier than...
Yeah, a player that ends up going earlier, a player that is maybe off the board, or a team that you've kind of identified as like you have no idea what they're going to do.
There's a few teams where I really feel like I have no idea what they're going to do. I wonder if we'll see any big trades. There's been a lot of rumors about like a Sabonis to the Hornets kind of move, or if the Bulls try to grab another top 10 pick. But a really interesting guy to me is Kareem Lopez, because obviously you guys know I'm a college hoops guy, and there's been one dude on the draft boards who didn't play college basketball this year, and it was Kareem Lopez. So he was the kind of guy that I just ignored. I'm like, I'll get to that in the summer. And then I start to dig into him, and I'm like very, very intrigued by him, because what's interesting about him with his awesome measurables, he's like the second youngest player in the draft, 6'9", obviously playing pro ball out in New Zealand. He's not a guy with like this great highlight tape. Like he is super high feel, and just has like the perfect like big wing 3-4 dribble pass shoot kind of body. And just with his age, he's going to be the first Mexican player drafted. I've listened to him speak. I like the kid a lot. He's a guy that I could see hopping up into like the top 10, and I wouldn't be shocked.
How many Big 12 guys do you think go in the first round? Taman posed this question earlier. He said it at, I think, 9 or 10. We think maybe 7 or 8's the number. I know Joshua Jefferson, his stock is rising. So where would you cap it?
Yeah, if Joshua Jefferson didn't get hurt at the end of the season, I mean, he was on a lot. He was on my first round. He was on a lot of people's, and he just wasn't on anybody's radar at the combine. So I still think he's the type of guy that could absolutely go at the end of the first round. But, I mean, if you go Darren AJ, Kingston, Burries, Christian Anderson, Cam Carr, Sinak, I'm at 7. Koa Pete, and then either Jefferson. Yeah, I would say 8's the number, but can we also talk about Koa Pete quickly? Mm-hmm. I understand, like, the pitch for Koa Pete. Go back to Arizona, get your money, be maybe the best player in college basketball, lead Arizona to another Final Four, right? I get it. Work on your three-point shot. 6 of 25 from deep, open gym is bad. Half my friends could do better than that. But I love Koa Pete still. He is such a dude. With his physicality, his versatility, the way he's been able to win, his passing, like, we've seen guys like, this isn't maybe the most fair comparison, and it's a little low-hanging fruit because he went to Arizona, but Aaron Gordon, like, put up 50 in, like, the first game of the NBA season, hitting, like, 8 threes. That dude was not shooting the basketball like that in college. Maybe a little bit, but I just think, one, maybe Koa Pete can improve as a shooter, and even if he doesn't, he's such a unique player and so strong. Like, sometimes we say, like, some of the booster knock is, oh, he can't just bully people at the NBA. Like, yeah, he can. That's what Zach Edey's bullying people in the NBA. I think Koa Pete can bully people in the NBA. And when you watch the playoffs, just having a versatile, big, strong dude with high feel and a great motor out there, I just think Koa Pete can play playoff minutes, like, soon. So I think people are overthinking a little bit with him, and it's a little too critical of the three-point shooting. But of course, I get it. 6 of 25 from 3 is awful, and you would have preferred for him to go back to school. So,
but to that end, Christian, and I talked to Tommy Lloyd about this. Like, he wasn't going to go back to Arizona and suddenly become a big-time, high-volume three-point shooter. Right. Sometimes your ability as a coach to develop players does not necessarily align with winning a national championship. And I would say that's the case with Koa Pete and Tommy Lloyd at Arizona. Koa needed to shoot more threes to continue to develop. That was not going to be the case at Arizona.
100%. I mean, they took the least amount of threes of
right,
anyone,
right?
And like, they could
right.
generate amazing shots without him ever doing that. So
yeah, it's just interesting because that would be the next thing that teams would be looking for. And it's like, well, you're not going to go back to school and do that. So you might as well just go and prove that you can by continuing to develop your three-point shot. Christian,
yeah, I think that's a great point.
Christian Odjakjian does a great job with Enjoy Basketball, college basketball analyst, NBA draft analyst. Overall, good dude. Christian, appreciate your time, brother. Be well.
Thanks, Christian.
Appreciate you guys. Talk soon.
Christian Odjakjian, one of our faves, joins us during the college basketball season and now talking NBA draft. All right, it's time for the consensus. We've each come up with our own lists ranking the top 16 Big 12 teams in our preseason poll. So we are trying to reach consensus amongst the 16. We've got a consensus for 16, 15, and 14. Can we get one for 13? That's next. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio.
For Houston down to 2. Sharp with 1. Was looking for a foul, and he still hit it. Emmanuel Sharp, an exclamation point.
Man's tough shot taker, tough shot maker.
I mean, he's going to do whatever it takes to win. Yeah, great leader.
My shooting, a lot of attacking the rim, playing on the ball. My defense too. My defense, I like to improve my defense, but mainly all areas of my game.
Sharp or Uzan How about Sharp? Yes! 3 more for the senior from Tampa.
He's on 3 shots. Tipped away again. 3-on-1 Houston. Emmanuel Sharp lays it in.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. It's time to build the excitement because we are building a consensus. The top 16 teams preseason in the Big 12. We're up to 13 now. James and I independently ranked each Big 12 team preseason 1 through 16. And now we're coming together to reveal each of our numbers and then come to consensus. Yesterday, I made the case for Kansas at 13. You made the case for Baylor at 13. We came to consensus on Kansas at 13. So Baylor's on the at 14. Excuse me. So Baylor's on the board. So let's reach consensus on 13 here, James.
Okay, so Baylor is on the board for spot number 13. The team that I would like to bring to the discussion today is UCF. Year 2 of the Scott Frost era, 2-7 last year in Big 12 play. 5-7 overall, a top 40 defense last year, but 149th nationally in passing. And their new quarterback already showed up to spring practice in the training room. He's not 100% healthy. So that's where I would start with UCF as I bring the Knights into the discussion.
All right, so we are deciding now between UCF, Baylor, and West Virginia. The team that I have 13th on my list finished 4-8 last year, 2-7 in the Big 12. UCF and West Virginia are really interesting because they're linked by having second-run head coaches in Scott Frost and Rich Rodriguez, two coaches that had a ton of success previously at West Virginia and UCF. Both took a bath last year in year one in the Big 12, and both took wildly different approaches to the transfer portal this offseason. West Virginia went out and got guys with 2, 3, 4 years of eligibility left, whereas UCF took mostly one-year rental players to try to be stopgaps. So let's play this thing out. What changed?
So I think the biggest thing about UCF, their offense was really bad last year. Okay, they were 14th in the Big 12 in every offensive category, rushing touchdowns, which on paper looked like a strength. Their passing yards were towards the bottom of the country. They just simply couldn't score points in Big 12 games only. And when I look at stats, a lot of times, you know, I lean into the Big 12 games, the 9 Big 12 games. I don't care what you did in the non-conference.
Right. Those could be outliers.
They averaged 19 points per game in Big 12 play.
Yikes.
And I look at their additions, and I just don't see a bunch of wow factors. Their top 2 receivers are going to be guys that they have retained, but weren't their top 2 receivers last year. Now, tight end Dylan Wade is really exciting, but what's changed is you have an entirely new running back room, an entirely new quarterback room, and you've got a new quarterback's coach in Mackenzie Milton, who was the star of that undefeated We Are National Champs 2017 Scott Frost team from Scott Frost Era 1.0. Well, this is a different animal. 34 players entered the transfer portal. That's one of the larger exits among the power conference schools in the country. They lose their quarterback that was their most efficient guy in Taven Jackson. They lose the headliner Malachi Lawrence off to the NFL. And then I mentioned DJ Black, the wide receiver, who's exited, and their top 2 running backs. So I just see a ton of holes across the board.
Yeah, but if I'm going to make the counter argument to UCF here, they had a good defense. They just couldn't score on offense, and turning over roster on a bad offense is probably a good thing. And I think their defense is going to be actually pretty good. For me, what changed about West Virginia? Well, back-to-back years of having the worst pass defense in the Big 12. 2 years ago under Neil Brown, they were dreadful. Rich Rod comes in, new coach, new position coach, new team, same result. They also lose quarterbacks Nico Marchiol and Jalen Henderson, along with Jaheim White. They're all gone. Remember, White was lost after week 2 to a torn ACL, which completely sabotaged West Virginia last season. West Virginia adds Rick Trickett as offensive line coach, something we'll dig into further, but let's take a look at the roster construction grade based on what's been added to UCF, James.
Yeah, I give UCF the same grade that I gave Baylor and I believe it was Iowa State and Cincinnati, and that is around a C. I would maybe give them a C+ if Alonzo Barnett is healthy. If he's healthy, he could be one of the more underrated signal callers in the country. And yes, their defense is the 8th most experienced defense in the country. But their home and road splits defensively were massive. So they finished as a top 40 defense. But at home, they were really good. On the road, they were terrible. They allowed almost 200 rushing yards per game in their true road games. And losing Malachi Lawrence to the NFL is a major red flag for me when I look at the guys that they brought in. They lose about 40% of their offensive line starts to the portal and graduation. You lose a top 10 pass rusher in school history. And then Nigel Kelly was their second best pass rusher last year. He's gone.
Yeah.
The secondary was really good. I'll give you that. But the turnover creation was not there. They were barely in the top 70 in interceptions. They were 89th in forced fumbles. They just couldn't come up with enough takeaways defensively to move the needle.
Yeah, I gave West Virginia a C+ for their roster construction grade. They did improve their offensive skill talent, which was a must. Michael Hawkins at quarterback, Cam Cook at running back. I think the offensive line, adding Trickett, what they did in the portal, I think the offense could be really good. The secondary has been rebuilt again, and that's probably the reason I didn't give them a higher grade. Had they rebuilt the secondary with more known players, that might have earned them any B grade, but instead there's just legitimate question marks once again at the secondary that was so difficult for them last year. But yeah, Rick Trickett is back as O-line coach for the third time in his career at West Virginia, bringing Jacksonville State transfers Cameron Griffin and Amari Grayson with him. Both are multi-year Group of 5 starters. Kevin Brown, a true freshman whose father played for Rich Rod and arrived from late from Penn State's portal class. So they've got some talent on the offensive side. There's no doubt about it. Running back and quarterback on the offensive line. It's the question marks on defense that for me, are the biggest hinge points in the season for West Virginia. What about for you and UCF?
Yeah, the hinge point comes down to the quarterback position and Alonzo Barnett. 5 different quarterbacks started last year for UCF. Alonzo Barnett has to be a dude in the Big 12. And number one, he's got to stay healthy. Over 5,000 career passing yards, 49 career touchdowns to only 13 interceptions. He's dual threat. He's another guy to throw into that dual threat Big 12 outlier category. Over 1,000 career rushing yards, but he's 5'11", which is why he didn't get bigger offers or better looks. But he took James Madison to the college football playoff. He's the real deal. But his backup is a transfer from Florida International who had 9 touchdowns and 6 interceptions last year in the Sun Belt. I have major concerns about the lack of depth at quarterback if Barnett goes down, and a lot of that comes down to, can they establish any type of ground game? How does the offensive line hold up? Which was okay last year. It wasn't top half of the Big 12.
But it wasn't
was
the
okay,
worst. Yeah.
And you lose 3 starters. So the hinge point for me is definitely at that quarterback position. You have to stay healthy.
The hinge point for West Virginia is Cam Cook and the running back position. Last year, Jaheim White was lost after week 2, and we know the importance of the running back position towards Rich Rod's offense. When West Virginia's offense is generating 350-plus yards of total offense, the 2025 team was 4-1. When they didn't, they were 0-7. The run game is the engine of everything. Play action, RPO, screen game, Rodriguez's zone read, all of it opens up if the run game is working. So this is the weapon they went out and spent the money to get, to bring in, to solidify the running back position. West Virginia becomes a much better team than 13th in the Big 12 if Cam Cook stays healthy and recognizes his potential. 13 looks far too low if Cam Cook's rushed for 1,200 yards this year. They could be a bowl team with that. So the hinge point is definitely Cam Cook. All right, what's the one thing that could derail the entire season?
So I go back to the offensive line. They lost 7 players to graduation on the offensive line, and they lost 2 more to the portal. So they have a couple starters back, and that is it. And Alonzo Barnett's value as a dual-threat quarterback, he's a quick decision maker. That requires a functioning pocket. UCF wasn't able to run their Scott Frost bread-and-butter no-huddle offense at all last year. 3rd and longs were constant, and the offensive line was a big reason why. They had 2 really talented NFL-caliber running backs. They just couldn't create holes for them. So that's my biggest red flag.
For me, it's the secondary. It cannot three-peat for West Virginia in terms of being the worst of the Big 12 for 3 straight years. It needs to hold up. It's been well documented. The 2025 secondary grade out near the bottom of the Division I in pass defense for the second consecutive year under 2 different coaching staffs. A bad secondary, again, will put too much pressure on the offense. In some weeks, I think you can be carried by an offense, but not every week. You can't have to win shootouts every single week. That, to me, is going to derail the entire season. If their secondary is not better than last year, go from being the worst over the last 2 years to average, and that will be having a dramatic impact on West Virginia's output. Is 13 right for UCF?
Yes. I say it is.
More so than West Virginia or Baylor?
Yes. Sorry, I thought we were doing this after the break. Got a little confused.
You're right. That's my fault. Totally was trying to do the whole thing in one segment. All right. Is 13 the right number for UCF, for West Virginia, or Baylor? We dig into that and argue next. It's Big 12 Today on the Consensus Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Right there, number 20, pulling around, he gets up into the hole and hits Roberts, and that just buys a little bit of space.
It's Martin instead. He's in. Touchdown. Elks over the field. Getting through these gaps. Watch how they move. They
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. This is the consensus. Trying to reach a consensus on number 13, so let's pick it up right there. James Westling, Ari Temkin. Why should UCF be 13?
Well, I have them at 13 because in Big 12 play, Big 12 games only, they've won 7 games, and they've lost 20 in their 3 seasons in this league. They've gone 3-6, 2-7, and 2-7. And being competitive and being in games simply doesn't help you in the standings. So 3 straight years well under 500 in conference play. And then in their 3 power conference seasons in this league, they have only 2 wins over teams from other power conferences or the Big 12 that have finished above 500.
Wow.
So of those 7 wins, 5 have come against bottom feeders. 30-plus new players, a 1-year quarterback with injury history, that rebuilt offensive line, and losing a first-round pass rusher, Malachi Lawrence, is why I think they're spot on at number 13.
For me, West Virginia finished 14th last year. They added on the offensive side of the ball enough to make you feel confident in offense, but not enough on defense. And that to me is, did they do enough on offense to improve their offense so much so that they should improve that much in the standings from 14th to 13th or even higher than that? They went 2-7 to the conference. They're replacing their entire secondary for a second consecutive year. There is some upside here, certainly, but I think there's also upside with UCF. It's hard for me to go off of West Virginia at 13. All right, who else should be, like, comparatively in this conversation with them?
So I think the case for, if I was to play devil's advocate for my team here, UCF, I would circle back to the first time Scott Frost was at UCF, which I think is what the fans in Orlando are hoping for. In 2016, UCF went 6-7. They finished 73rd in the SP Plus ratings. And then the next season, it all came together, and they went 13-0. So he's done this exact rebuild before. The 2026 schedule avoids Texas Tech and Utah, so that helps. They also have 7 home games. I noted the reference. Statistically, the home and road splits were as big as anybody in this conference last year. So schedule-wise, maybe they do finish a little bit higher than where I have them 13th.
What's the national perception versus Big 12 reality?
I think the national perception of UCF is that it's only a 3-year sample size, so I hate to say they don't belong at the power conference level, but I think the national narrative is this was a really good group of 5 school and a really good group of 5 program that just doesn't have the horses and the resources to hang at a power conference level. This is a huge hinge point or hinge season to remove that narrative for UCF because of that 7-20 record against Big 12 foes. That just continues to stand out to me.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is the Big 12 title odds makers has West Virginia at plus 4,000. They're ahead of Iowa State, Cincinnati, and Colorado. So you know what that means? Baylor and West Virginia both have higher predictions to be Big 12 champs than West Virginia does. Look, I think nationally, you know, a lot of folks are sleeping on West Virginia, rightfully so. They went 4-8 last year. It's year 2 of the same coach. Many people probably think, oh, it's Rich Rod. He's a retread. But I think 2025 is important context here that we know about, right? He was hired 6 weeks before the transfer portal window closed with a roster that was completely depleted based on the transfer portal after Neil Brown was fired. He was building the plane while he was flying the plane. So, you know, to me, that leaves the option open for dramatic improvement because nothing was set up for him to be successful last year. There was zero buy-in. He had to just speed date the heck out of the portal. He came into this year with a lot more opportunity in the portal, you know, a lot more thought out in his plan, and a lot more buy-in, it feels like, for the team overall. All right, what's the ceiling and the floor?
You know, I will say, one of these 2 programs that we're discussing, West Virginia and UCF, my money's on one of them having a breakthrough season. I just don't know which one that's
I agree with that. I agree.
Like Brent Brennan did it last year at Arizona. Willie Fritz did it at Houston. Recent samples would indicate that year 2 is usually a breakthrough year in terms of major improvement. Maybe not Big 12 championship contender-esque, but just a huge uptick in your wins and your losses. So in terms of the ceiling, like UCF plays at Pitt week 2. They've got 2 gimme games against Bethune-Cookman and Georgia State like they had last year. But then it's TCU at home. Back-to-back road games at Houston and at Oklahoma State. Their road games are very challenging, which means they have to protect the bounce house. Now they get Arizona State, Iowa State, Baylor, BYU at home. I see some winnable games in that stretch. So let's say they get one top 25 win. They pull off a major upset. That would put them, in my estimation, at 8-4. So I think 8-4 is the ceiling for UCF. 8-4 to me would be considered a breakthrough bounce back year. It would be similar to what Arizona did this past season. So 8-4, I think, is the ceiling for the Knights.
Yeah, I'd say the same for West Virginia. I mean, schedule-wise, they play at Iowa State, but they also play at TCU, at Texas Tech, and at Utah. The rest of their conference games are Houston, Kansas, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma State. They have a really tough schedule. I mean, you play TCU, Texas Tech, Houston, Utah, Arizona, and Oklahoma State, who could all be top 5 teams in the Big 12. I think I named 6 teams, so all could be 6 teams in the Big 12. And this is where I kind of lean towards more UCF being 13, if I'm being honest with you.
Ooh. Okay, we might have a consensus. So the floor for UCF, to me, is 4-8. UCF probably has an easier schedule than West Virginia.
Yeah, sorry, I said that opposite-wise. That confirms why West Virginia should be 13.
I was like, you're agreeing with me? What
yeah,
happened?
You just said the schedule's really difficult, and therefore they should be higher on your list?
Got a little...
Huh?
Okay. So...
I was confused.
Take back everything I said. UCF does have an easier schedule down the stretch. Their last 5 games are Baylor at home, at Kansas, Arizona State at home, Iowa State at home, and at Colorado. There's a chance they could win 4 out of 5 in that stretch. All of those are swing games. So their lack of ability to win on the road in this conference is red flag number 1. So I'm going to chalk up all those to losses. And then I'm not so sure they can win at home against a BYU, an Arizona State, a Baylor team that you convinced me yesterday that Baylor, this could actually work for Dave Aranda. They have road games at Houston and Oklahoma State. I think those are both losses. So I would say like 4-8 is probably the floor for UCF, which would be a 1-game regression from last year, and that would pin them with the same Big 12 record that they had last year and the year before, which was 2-7.
Yeah, I'd say the same for worst case is true with West Virginia at 4-8. I mean, the secondary is a huge question mark. If it bleeds chunk plays, now you've got a quarterback that's made mistakes previously, try to do a little bit too much and try to carry a load. Cam Cook, when we last saw him at TCU, he was not great simply because of what we're just talking about here, which is the defense kind of forces the issue. It takes away the running game now, and now you've got to pass the ball way too much. That could be a disaster for West Virginia. Look, I think West Virginia, as we go to our locked in, the case for keeping them at 13, I think West Virginia is the most important running back in the bottom half of the Big 12. They have a rebuilt offensive line under Rick Trinkett, and I think that is going to be a major strength for this year's team. And look, year 2 has historically been good for Rich Rod in his previous stops, far more than year 1. And based on the situation that he inherited year 1, year 2 should be better just based on that and that alone. But they finished near the bottom of Division I in passing in back-to-back seasons. Under 2 different coaching staffs, they replaced their entire secondary yet again. So it's a legitimate question mark that, for me, limits their ceiling here. I think 2027 could be the real year for either of these teams after building momentum in 2026. The idea, though, is identifying which is the right one. For me, that's probably UCF, just based on did West Virginia do enough. West Virginia built with more long-term guys. They built with more 2-3 years of eligibility guys. UCF went with more of the one-and-dones. That's why I think UCF should start a little bit higher than West Virginia.
Okay.
What about you?
Oh, I'm sorry. final defense. I was looking at UCF's schedule. So UCF lost 4 of their last 5 games. They were getting crushed by people. They lost by 27 at Baylor. They lost to Houston. They lost 48-9 to Texas Tech. And they lost by 3 touchdowns to BYU. Their only win post-November 1st was a 17-14 home game against Oklahoma State with an interim head coach. They weren't in the Cincinnati game. They were down 20-3. They scored a late touchdown and 2-point conversion. They lost to Kansas at home by a touchdown. They got walloped by K-State when K-State was an absolute mess. Just the way they lost these games highlights the deficiencies.
Yeah.
And the only really statistical edge that I see from them is their passing defense. Well, that passing defense number is magnified by teams rushing all over them, building huge leads, and then they don't have to throw the ball. So I think that number's a little bit skewed. I don't know how they replace Malachi Lawrence. So my final defense would be 5 different quarterbacks last season, one of the worst passing offenses in the country. That's supposed to be Scott Frost's thing. It's supposed to be this no-huddle, up-tempo offense. And even with 2 NFL-caliber running backs, they still couldn't rush the football. And I see major, major red flags on the offensive line.
Okay, let me ask you this then. What's UCF's strength?
Their secondary.
Yeah. What's West Virginia's strength?
Their ground game.
Is it? Is it?
Oh, yeah.
We've seen UCF's pass defense play at this level. We have not seen Cam Cook play well at this level. This isn't his first chance to do it either, right? It's one thing for a guy like the kid coming in from North Texas to Oklahoma State,
Caleb Hawkins.
We haven't seen him at TCU in the way we saw Cam Cook at TCU.
But we've seen Scotty Fox, who was multiple-time Freshman of the Week. We've seen Michael Hawkins when he was at Oklahoma. So we've seen him play against SEC defenses. Alonzo Barnett has played against one power conference defense in the college football playoff. And then offensively, West Virginia averaged 143 yards on the ground per game. That's about the same as UCF. But they averaged more yards per carry. They had more touchdowns. Defensively, I think both teams have major holes to fill. I'm just a little bit more optimistic about Rich Rod and his ability to reshape offenses. And then West Virginia has a signature win. They won at Houston last year, late in the year. They also beat Pitt in the non-conference. That's what's lacking on UCF's resume is those signature wins. I just can't find them.
Since you made the case yesterday for Baylor at 14, and I've got Baylor higher than this, can you make the case here that Baylor should be 13 over West Virginia or UCF?
I would say Baylor over UCF, certainly, yes. The more I look into Baylor, the more I think I have misidentified their potential. With Joe Klanderman reshaping that defense, I think we could make a case that Baylor should be even higher than number 13.
I agree. And I was simply going to say, which quarterback would you rather have? DJ Lagway, Alonzo Barnett, or Michael Hawkins? It's a pretty easy answer to me.
DJ Lagway, but quarterback room, I would rather have West Virginia's quarterback room because Scotty Fox, he might still be the starter. And he showed last year he can win you football games. He won the road game at Pitt. He won the road game at Houston late in the year. He is very capable for a freshman.
That schedule, though, for West Virginia, does UCF play all those Texas Tech, TCU, Houston, Utah, Oklahoma State?
And when we did this exercise, or as we go through this exercise, I evaluated these teams based off of roster, portal movement, what I saw last year. I did not go through the schedule.
Schedule's
and
important
wins
here.
And losses, and I do agree UCF has a lighter schedule.
UCF does not play Texas Tech. They do not play TCU. They do not play Utah. They do play TCU. They do not play Utah.
They don't play Texas Tech. They don't play Utah. They don't play Kansas State.
West Virginia plays TCU, Texas Tech, Utah, Houston, and Oklahoma State, and Arizona. I just see more wins on UCF's conference schedule. Taman, what's consensus here since we have not reached it?
My consensus is with you guys. I think UCF's a 13. I think they have too many questions on offense. Their quarterback can't stay healthy. No Malachi Lawrence this year. That's big. They're 7-20 in the Big 12 in the last 3 seasons. I think West Virginia has better answers at quarterback. They have a new offensive line. Year number 2 under Rich Rod. Cam Cook, I know you have questions about it, but running behind a new, we believe, better offensive line, I think that ranks them higher than UCF.
You see what he's doing?
He's
here?
just alternating every day.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was not the plan.
A master class in management.
I was getting ready to jump all over him, but he makes some good points. UCF at 13. I'll concede. I didn't want to.
So
but you can deal with Scott Frost at Media Days.
Where do we have teams so far? What is the consensus?
Right now, the consensus is 16 Cincinnati, 15 Iowa State, 14 Kansas, 13 UCF.
Okay. So that opens the door for Baylor and West Virginia to have a jump, frankly, from where they finished last year.
Correct.
And I could see either one of those programs breaking through.
Okay, let me ask you this then as we prepare to make a consensus on number 12. Do you have West Virginia at number 12?
Sorting through my email rapidly. Who do I have at number 12? Hey, guys, here's my pecking. No, I do not. I do not have West Virginia at number 12.
Okay, so it'll be interesting to see tomorrow what we end up doing with who I have at 12, who you have at 12, and will Baylor continue to fly up the boards?
Do you have a new team at 12 that we have not discussed?
No.
Same.
You've got Kansas at 12?
Turntables have turned, Timken.
Do you have Kansas at 12?
Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
All right, we'll do that tomorrow. Coming up next, though, it's a mystery guest. Taman is getting us a guest to talk about the consensus, so we'll talk with somebody from one of these teams next.
Let me get him.
Malachi Lawrence ends that drive for K-State.
He is swallowed up behind the line of scrimmage. Malachi Lawrence, a loss of 2.
Third down and long. Trouble on the edge. And they go back to back. This one belongs to Malachi Lawrence.
Johnson on a 4th and 6. Scans. Backpedaling. Going the opposite way. Now he throws around the edge. In pursuit. UCF gets to him. Malachi Lawrence, one of their 2 vaunted pass rushers on the edge, ends that drive for K-State.
He's got our antennas up. And the antenna goes down. Malachi Lawrence again. This time, his first sack of the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's just absolute force right there by Malachi Lawrence.
It's a play if you're UCF. Here's Pryor, and he is swallowed up behind the line of scrimmage. Malachi Lawrence, a loss of 2. And
One more play before the quarter break. Fox leaves the pocket to the numbers and track down. Malachi Lawrence finishes 3 here in Orlando with his UCF 9th.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We just reached consensus on UCF at 13 at our consensus Big 12 rating. James individually ranked all 16 teams of the Big 12. I individually ranked all 16 teams of the Big 12. We are coming to a consensus now. We've got Cincinnati at 16, Iowa State at 15, Kansas at 14, and now UCF at 13. Joining us now to talk UCF football is Matt Murschel of the Orlando Sentinel. Matt, 13th out of 16 teams of the Big 12. Does that feel right to you for UCF?
It seems a little low. I mean, I would have maybe had them around the 11 range. You know, I think based on some of the talent they brought in, you know, with Alonzo Barnett, the third coming in at quarterback, the defense returning a lot of starters from last year, some of the transfers they brought in on the offensive side of the football. I think this is going to be a better team than they were last year. But, I mean, their schedule is going to have some challenges in it. I think that's going to be something that Scott Frost and his staff understand, that they're going to have to find a way to get past some of these games, particularly on the road.
All right, Matt. So convince us that this season doesn't hinge on Alonzo Barnett's health, number one, and number two, his performance in Big 12 play. Like in Big 12 games only, UCF struggled to score. They scored 19 points per game in league play, and they played 5 different quarterbacks. So does it all come down to Barnett, or is there something else?
No, it all comes down to Barnett. I mean, my belief going into this season is they had to shore up the quarterback position. I mean, like you mentioned, last year they had 4 quarterbacks that kind of rotated in and out at different times. It's been the case for the last 2 or 3 years, really, that their quarterback position has been really lacking, even though the coaches thought that position would be one of their strongest. This year, to me, this is it, because they brought in Alonzo Barnett with the specific idea that he was going to be the cornerstone of this class, and that they felt like, here's a guy who was the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year, led James Madison to the college football playoff, a guy they feel like can put the weight of being the starter on his shoulders and go out there. That's not to say that they haven't built some pieces behind him, just in case something happens, but they're relying on him. They have a brand new basically running backs room, a couple guys who came as transfers, Duke Watson and Landon Chambers, they feel like will help them out a little bit. The receiver group is stronger than it was going into last season with some of the talent they have there. Offensive line, to me, is going to be a key question for them, because of the fact that they only return one returning starter in Preston Cushman. But defensively, like I mentioned, they have some really good starters coming back. They have to identify who's going to be their big guys up front on the edge. But their secondary is really strong. They're strong at nickel. They're going to be linebacker group is going to be strong again. So other than that, I think this is a pretty good group. But yes, it all hinges on can Barnett step up and play. I think it's not going to be that difficult of a transition going into Big 12. It's just going to be making sure they keep him healthy and upright.
Yeah, and what about, Matt, the defensive side, as you mentioned? Because I think preseason-wise, there's pretty high expectations. The secondary looks really good. But the question mark is, without Lawrence and Kelly, what kind of an impact is that going to have on the defense overall?
Yeah, and I think that's it. You look at guys. Sincere Edwards was a transfer they brought in from Pittsburgh last year. He expected a lot of high things from him. He got hurt and injured, missed most of the season, about 4 or 5 games in. They got a guy in Isaiah Nixon who's been with the program for over 4 years. He understands exactly what's expected of him. They brought in some other players through the transfer portal, Bruno Dahl, who they feel like can help them out, Ken Talley, another guy that they brought in they feel like can help out. To me, that's the key to the success for their defenses. They've got to get pressure up front. They've got to be disruptive in the backfield. They've got to make sure they contain the run. They got to make it easier, on their linebackers and their secondary units, because really when they get pressurized, they're able to make the plays, but they weren't like the best when it came to turnovers. And that's something that Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator, really stressed in spring, is they've got to get more turnovers. They've got to force the ball and get more turnovers. So to me, that's all starts up front, and they're going to have to find ways to kind of get that. Horace Lockett coming back at tackle is probably the best move that they did on the defensive side in the offseason. Getting him to come back. He was in the transfer portal for a brief time, but changed his mind. He's a good presence up front. If he stays healthy, I think this is a group right now that, like I said, has a really good potential to be the strength of this team.
Speaking of up front, on the offensive side of the football, a lot of departures on the offensive line. I saw that UCF just signed a 6'11" offensive lineman from Campbell. What can you tell us about that group up front, and how much of an issue was that last season protecting for that rotation of quarterbacks?
I think last year they had much. They had 4 or 5 guys that were coming back. This was a more solid group. But the quarterback position was just one that just suffered from injury over and over again. Even in the first game, the opening game, Cam Fancher was the starter. He got hurt in the top of the second quarter. So, and he was gone for a few games, and that opened the door for Taven Jackson. So, this group, the offensive line, Preston Cushman comes in at tackle. He's the returning starter. They brought in a lot of transfers. They have a brand new, offensive line coach, and AJ Blazik, who they really like, who's a guy that they feel like brings a solid foundation with him, coming from the Big Ten. He was at Wisconsin. They feel like he's got a chance to maybe develop some of the players. They had some young guys that have been kind of biding their time on this roster. They really want an opportunity to kind of showcase what they can do as well. So they brought in some guys that they feel like, from other schools that had some starting experience, they feel like is going to help them out. Identifying those guys, getting them in a position, getting a rotation, 8, 9 guys, it's going to be key for them, and they're not just for protecting the quarterback. They've got to run the football better. I thought that, Miles Montgomery and Jane Nixon had explosive plays last year, but it wasn't like they, were out there running it for 100 yards every game. It wasn't like this was a rushing offense that was, top 3 or 4 in the conference. They were about middle of the pack. They've got to get better, because if they run the football, I think this kind of opens some things up for them, what they want to do offensively. Plus, they need to utilize the screens. They need to utilize some wide zone. Those are things that they really kind of have success with. They weren't able to do. So getting the offensive line right is going to be one of their key issues going into fall camp.
Road games have been a huge struggle for UCF since they joined the Big 12. What's been the issue there? And Matt, how do you think they turn that around?
That's funny, because I've asked Scott that all the time. What is the problem? You guys get all up and you have a really good, week of practice, and then you go on the road, and it's almost like you just kind of, you forgot, what's going on. And Scott's even said it's kind of bewildering. They look good on the practice field, and they get on the road, and it's like they just fall apart. And I think some of that is turnovers. I think some of that is experience. Like I mentioned last year, they had some guys that hadn't had a lot of playing time. They maybe were a sophomore, junior, but didn't have a lot of playing time. And I think once you get on the road and you get in environments like Baylor or Kansas State or Kansas, or places where it can be really kind of intimidating, sometimes that can cause some issues. So also, I think the quarterback position, like I mentioned before, they didn't have solid quarterback play at times. And when your quarterback's struggling on the road, it's difficult sometimes to get things going. So to me, I think if they could just kind of go in with this new attitude of listen, it's just like playing at home, and they get guys who have experience doing that. And I think Barnett's going to help them out. I think some of the other guys they brought in, I think that'll help them maybe get over the hump when it comes to the road games.
Matt, what are the fan expectations for this season? Back in 2016, Scott Frost goes 6-7, and the next year 13-0, and he wins the Peach Bowl. So year 2 of 2.0, what's the number for UCF fans?
Well, I think they would love to see him for sure get to a bowl game. Now if they get to 7 or 8 wins, I think that's a pretty good ceiling for them right now. I know a lot of people want to compare 2016, 2017 and say, okay, year 2 they went 13-0. In 2017, they're going to go 13-0 this year. No, Scott said that many times. That's not going to happen, not with the way the world is right now. So I think there's an opportunity to be stronger. Now, whether or not, they can, I don't think they're going to go undefeated by any stretch of the imagination. But I think they can have a strong showing, and I think that would really kind of help them out. If they can get to that 6, 7, 8 win area, I think fans would be very excited by that. If they finish back to 5 wins or less than that, then I think they're going to be fans are really going to be kind of itchy, and they want to know what's going on, and they want to find out how can they make this thing work.
Great stuff. As always, our friend Matt Marshall of the Orlando Sentinel. Matt, thanks for your time. Be well.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Matt.
Yeah, appreciate you very much. It's funny. So far, every guest we've had on has said we are too low on their school.
Off-season optimism is mandatory.
Great point.
Big 12 Media Days, off-season optimism is mandatory. Everybody's bigger, stronger, faster. Everybody's more talented. Everybody's fixed this or that issue. Everybody's gotten deeper each and every off-season until those games kick off on Saturday.
All right, so we've got consensus on 13. That'll be West Virginia. I have UCF at 12. You have Kansas at 12. Which means by default, since we've already put Kansas at 13, 14, and UCF was the argument on this side, we'll put UCF at 12 and move on to number 11 for tomorrow's show. This was a segment that is a great idea, but I don't know that we worked out the kinks of the execution of it because there's a lot of things within it that are if-then statements,
Aren't we arguing, Taman, for the number 12 ranked team because UCF is 13th?
Yeah, so UCF is 13th. You had Kansas at number 12, and Ari had UCF at number 12.
So that means West Virginia goes
West
to 12.
Virginia,
Excuse me.
right.
I beg your pardon. I keep mixing up. I'm doing what you did yesterday with who was that with? What was this?
It gets confusing.
Yeah.
It was Cincinnati, West Virginia. Oh, that was you.
That was me, with Iowa State. I kept calling Iowa State West Virginia.
All right, let's talk this through, guys. Brainstorming session happening
Here we go.
right now.
Yes, love it.
So do we bring a new team to the table for spot number, what would be 12?
Why would we do that? Since you have Kansas and I have UCF at 12.
See, the difference, the one thing we haven't discussed is what happens when one of us has a team much higher than the other. We have large discrepancies with Baylor and with another team that was brought to the table today. Taman, you just figure it out. You let us know.
I got you.
Well, now, if there's a large discrepancy, I think that team keeps going up until we say that they should be there.
Okay.
I'm pulling up both of you guys' list again. I don't think you guys have any major discrepancies. Like, you guys are close, but
yeah, I think that's the case.
I think our thought was we were going to bring a new team to the table tomorrow for what would be spot number 12.
But there is no new team, so I think we give spot number 12 to West Virginia and then move on to number 11 where we can introduce at least one new team.
Okay. I'm fine with it.
Unless you'd like to just argue for 12.
No, it's fine.
But the reality here
I had
is,
West Virginia 9th. They're my sleeper team.
Do you really?
Yes.
Oh, so we shouldn't just put West Virginia at 12 then.
I mean, you guys could argue West Virginia and Baylor for the 12 seed.
We could do that.
We could do that.
See, I'm bringing a new team to the table that is not West Virginia. We just did West Virginia.
At number 12.
At number 13. UCF was consensus number 13.
Correct.
So because I have West Virginia so much higher than everybody else, I have to bring a new team to the table that I would argue should be number 12.
Got it.
Even
Okay.
though I have that team higher.
Understood. Let's do that. Understood.
Okay.
So tomorrow, I'll make the case for West Virginia.
Okay.
And Baylor.
I was going to say, I think it's Baylor. No. This is all really confusing.
West Virginia and Baylor are the two teams that are kind of hanging in the wind right now.
Right.
Okay.
So I'll make the case for West Virginia tomorrow again, and you'll make the case for your new team.
My new team.
At 12.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Does that make you sleep well at night?
No.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. We'll get you ready for today's College World Series game between West Virginia and Troy next.
Wickman look in that direction, and it's picked off. UCF with the interception. It's Philip Dunham out past the 45.
UCF shows pressure. Down goes Martin in the backfield. Philip Dunham at the tackle from the safety spot.
Blitz coming by UCF. Wickman has to get rid of it. Throws a pick. Another pick. And another pick six. It's Philip Dunham doing it.
To get to about the 6-yard line to extend the drive, and they cannot. Philip Dunham, who has a sack and now a pass breakup, came to play this afternoon.
We've been thrown on second down, looking for Thomas. He's picked off. It's Dunham again. His third interception of the game.
And a pick in the first quarter and a pick six. Here's Dunham again. He's the leader on the back end for the Knights.
Teams have come in costly times
Big 12 today, Big 12 radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Big one today for the Mountaineers, the Omaneers. So they look to continue. Yeah,
They calling themselves that?
Yeah.
The Omaneers?
Omaheers.
Omaheers. It's a hybrid. It's a Omaha and Mountaineers.
Yes.
I got that.
Omaneers.
I like it.
It's been said way more eloquently than I just laid it out. West
You
Virginia and
spell that
Troy.
for me.
No, I can't. West Virginia and Troy today. The winner moves on to tomorrow against North Carolina. The winner has to beat North Carolina twice. North Carolina just has to win once. You like West Virginia's chances today to stay in Omaha?
Gotta tell you, I love our friends in Morgantown, but Omaneers is not it. That is not the play. That does not just roll right off the tongue.
Omaneers?
Omaneers is how I would read that. O-M-A-Neers. The Mountaineers are Omaha bound. I think they get by Troy today, but then North Carolina, they're just an absolute monster. They're a machine. They recruit at a high level. They've got 4 or 5 arms that are future pros. They've been to the College World Series 13 times. They've got a coach that has kind of carried the torch. But on the flip side, West Virginia had some very un-West Virginia things happen in that game. They had costly errors in the 7th inning that ultimately led to North Carolina pulling away. West Virginia is an elite defensive ball club. So I wouldn't be surprised to see West Virginia get one against North Carolina and force it to a Game 3. And then who knows what could happen from there. What about you?
Look, their defense has been really good all year. The problem is it's let them down in big moments, like in the Big 12 tournament and championship game and in the North Carolina game. So it's like, what do you bank on? Do you bank on the history that suggests their defense is fine? I also really like their pitching, but didn't look great against North Carolina. I'll say this. I think they beat Troy, and I think they at least take it to a Game 3 against North Carolina.
Yeah.
I think they beat North Carolina and get to that final game against North Carolina.
Which means, like, if that happens, that is an incredible season. You are 1 game away from playing in the championship series of the College World Series. Like, that would be huge. That wouldn't be a disappointment in my eyes. I know it's easy to say, well, you want this team to be in that championship series. But to get that close would in no way, shape, or form be a disappointment in my eyes. And it would continue to give Steve Sabins the credibility and the trajectory for this West Virginia team being elite. Last year's team wasn't much different in terms of wins and losses. This team just did it on a national stage and took that next step to being a national champion.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a moment. Let's say they beat Troy and then lose to North Carolina and they're eliminated. Then you've beaten Troy twice. You beat Little Rock.
Cal Poly.
You did not beat Little Rock. Troy did.
Mm-hmm.
So does that diminish any of that?
I could see in terms of perception and narrative.
You can only play the teams in front of you.
Right.
And Troy eliminated Ole Miss.
And Troy's been like a media darling. Everybody loves their Cinderella type story. So I don't think in terms of recruiting, in terms of fan engagement, it moves the needle. I don't think it hurts you in any way. But maybe the national, and I also, the national perception of baseball doesn't have the impact that it does for men's basketball or football.
Yeah.
So I think they're okay either way.
Yeah. Look, I think it's been a tremendous season for West Virginia. Obviously, would love to see them win today to get to North Carolina, but regardless, it's been a tremendous season. And, you know, we heard the clip earlier this week or last week from Steve Sabins about, you know, the incremental growth, you know, going from, you know, a team that rarely made the postseason to perennial postseason team, getting to the regionals and getting eliminated, then getting to the super regionals, getting eliminated, now getting to the World Series, right? So they've taken incremental steps, incremental growth. There's no reason to expect that they won't be even better next year. And remember, Gavin Kelly's back. He could be the presumptive #1 pick in next year's draft. He could be the #1 prospect in baseball next season at West Virginia as a catcher second baseman, which is such a rarity in sports.
And I love what Steve Sabins is doing. He is changing the way the game is played.
Yeah.
He brings in a bunch of versatile, athletic, talented, positionless players. And then he puts them all over the board, which makes them naturally deeper and gives them an upper hand at certain spots. It's very strategic. It's like 5 out in basketball. It's ahead of its time. And this is coming from a program that almost completely shut down the baseball program as we know it less than 2 decades ago.
Crazy.
I mean, that almost happened to Kansas State back in the 80s, but that is like way in the past. 15 years ago, 2010, 2011. That feels like yesterday.
Right.
And here they are in this moment. It's been an incredible run. Love them or hate them, Pat McAfee being a West Virginia guy also helps West Virginia in terms of the national perception. It's just been really cool to see all the fandom surrounding this team. I went to the airport yesterday. Spoiler alert, it was busy. I don't know if you know the World Cup is being played here in Dallas. Felt like I walked into a conference for the United Nations. So many different languages, so many different types of people. It was really cool.
You just went to go hang out at the airport?
I was dropping off my daughter. She had a flight.
Oh, she's left. She's gone.
She is gone. Dust in the wind. She'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Well, Iran played yesterday in L.A., and they're actually staying in Mexico. They're not allowed to stay in the United States because, we're at war with Iran. So they had a game in L.A. yesterday. They flew in and flew out. Could not stay in Los Angeles.
Whoa. Dude, one of my favorite. I went down a
I
social
believe that
media.
ended up being a 2-2 tie in that game. 2-2, New Zealand and Iran.
When you had that huge upset yesterday, was it Spain that got beat?
They tied 0-0 against a country that I had never heard of.
It has a population of like 400 people. I didn't know that place existed.
Cape Verde?
Cape Verde.
Yeah. I was yesterday years old when I knew that Cape Verde was a country. Sorry to admit that I'm a moron. And yeah, African nation, Cape Verde.
It's very small.
Maybe it's Verde. I don't know. I didn't know they spoke Spanish in Africa.
Well, let me tell you one other thing. It's an island. It's a collection of islands. They're not even on the mainland.
Wow. And Anthony, our great producer for Big 12 Studios, is a Cape Verde expert.
I thought you were going to say native. Sign me up.
My aunt is from there, and she was at the game with my uncle, her daughter, and mom, and they speak Portuguese.
That's amazing.
Which is a very close cousin of Spanish, which is why I thought that it was, in fact, Spanish. So it was Portugal that landed on that island and took it over many moons ago.
And they're a lot closer to like Guinea and Senegal and Morocco than they are Spain and Portugal, this collection of islands. It's an incredible story, and I've also really enjoyed all of the international fans coming over to America and then tweeting and live streaming just their reactions to everything here in the States.
Yeah.
And I'm asking Claude last night, I'm like, what if I go to their country? What's it like there? They have tiny baby gas stations made for ants? Like, they can't believe the size of these gas stations. They go to a Costco, they've never seen anything like it.
Well, yeah, Buc-ee's would make anybody think a gas station's ginormous.
But this wasn't Buc-ee's. I've seen the Buc-ee's one go viral.
Yeah.
This was just a traditional
Just a
gas
regular,
station.
your run-of-the-mill gas station.
Walmart, an appropriately sized Walmart or Costco. This was, they couldn't believe their eyes.
We've got some heavy hitters today on the World Cup slate, by the way. In fact, I have a good friend and a neighbor of mine that is Argentinian who has a pretty large contingent of Argentinians driving from the Dallas area up to Kansas City to see Argentina and Algeria tonight in Kansas City. And if you remember, we talked about the Argentinians that were...
And they made it.
Made it to Kansas City, rode their bikes from Argentina to Kansas City.
And Kansas City's been the #1 market in America for viewership. It is wheels off up in KC. And, yeah, a local TV station followed them from, like, Lawrence to Kansas City and had it all on the Kansas City News. And I thought, hey, we were just talking about those guys a couple of weeks ago. They made it.
Thanks to Anthony Smith, by the way. It's Cape Verde.
Okay, Verde.
The E isn't even there.
Okay. Cape Verde. Got it?
Anthony Smith, if you have any other fun facts about Cape Verde, now would be the time.
I'm here for it.
There are so many countries I've never heard of.
So
many.
And just islands. There's islands.
Many.
There's a lot of islands. I remember I covered a basketball tournament in Bimini, Bahamas. I said the Bahamas, I'm thinking like Battle for Atlantis. No, it was on this 7-mile island. You could hit a golf ball from water to water in terms of width of the island, just one long stretch. No cars. Everybody drove golf carts or they just walked around. It was incredible.
Do you know how many countries there are in the world?
At least 200.
Close.
At least 150.
You were closer than to 200. Taman?
184?
193. 193 countries. How many do you think you could name?
Oh. There's how many?
93.
193. I bet I could get to 150. Oh, yeah.
150 countries?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say 100.
Come on. Come on.
I'm not going to do it.
Oh, no. 150? No way you can get to 150.
Let's just...
You can't even get to 100. I don't think I could get to 50.
You could get to 50. You could get to 50. You could get to 50.
Yeah, maybe. I'm going to do this after the show. You could not get to 150. That I'll,
All right, let's
I'll
just
put,
go.
I'll put 150
Let's
bucks.
just go North America. Let's just all the way down to South America.
Canada, the United States, Mexico. Boom. 3.
Canada, United States, Mexico, Panama, Belize, Argentina, Chile, Colombia.
Uruguay.
Yes.
Paraguay.
Yes. We're at 11. You're crushing it. What's north of Canada? Antarctica doesn't count. Greenland?
Sure.
Feels right.
Yeah. It's definitely east of Canada.
British, no, that doesn't count.
I think Greenland is actually a part of Denmark. Like, that's
right.
like their, it's kind of like.
Captain Geography over here. I'm impressed.
I think it's its own country still. I think it's recognized as one of the 193. I think.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, it might be. It's like Canada and the UK. You know how Canada is technically a part of the United Kingdom, but it's still its own country?
Yeah, it's all very confusing.
I just the only reason I brought this up is because yesterday when I heard that Spain was playing Cape Verde, I felt like an idiot.
Dominican Republic?
And then I was thinking,
Jamaica.
wait, how many other countries are there that I've never heard of? Many.
A lot. There's a lot.
And unfortunately, I live in the United States,
There's a
fortunately or unfortunately, where they don't really teach us a lot about every other country.
No, and they should.
Should they?
They should. But, yeah, it was just like, I'm used to being at the airport and
Being around normal American people.
like just all the colors. I saw flags. I look at it. I'm like, why is this guy dressed like a vitamin? Like just all the brightness and all the different languages. And everybody was so excited. They were so excited to be there.
It's funny. All these people are excited to be there, and all the Americans are like, why are you here?
Yes.
Why are you excited?
Yes, my daughter's like, oh, this line's taking forever. I'm like, did you hear that guy? Did you hear that guy?
He spent his life savings to come here.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it really is.
But yeah, it really makes me want to go. Like, I want to visit Japan. They just have vending machines everywhere. It's all
Everything's
housing.
clean, yeah.
Super clean.
All right, so let me ask you this before we get out, because we could wrap a bow around the Brendan Sorsby story. What sort of lasting impact do you think this will have on Texas Tech? Good, bad, indifferent.
5 years from now, indifferent. Immediate impact. Everybody's gunning for him. The Big 12 is gunning for him. The college football national community is gunning for them.
And they're, by the way, they're gunning for everybody else, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've got receipts of all of the people, the complaints.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great. I think it makes them a villain, which I think is good for sports. It's good for the Big 12. It brings more attention. People want to tune in to watch them lose. Mm-hmm. They're going to become a much more high-ticket item this year, especially if they win. If they win, a lot of people are going to want to tune in to watch them.
It helps their brand. And that was my original take, was this is good for the Big 12. This is putting the Big 12 in a position that it hasn't been.
It's ended really well for the Big 12. If Sorsby had played, it might not have.
Yeah, it started good. Sorsby stuff comes out. Everybody hates Texas Tech. What is the Big 12 going to do? And now it's kind of reverted back to it's really good for the Big 12. He's not playing. Texas Tech is a villain. They are an alpha. They are a brand. Everybody's gunning for them. And to your point, Texas Tech has kept receipts. And it puts the Big 12 conference, not to say it wasn't on the map before, but it magnifies the stake that the Big 12 has in college football.
That's James Westlake. I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are back tomorrow for our consensus on number 12 as we continue to create a consensus amongst the top 16 in the Big 12. Thanks, of course, to Anthony Smith, whose family's from Cape Verde. Way to go, Cape Verde. Thanks, of course, to Taba Turner, T-Chains, producing with us here at TuneIn. Thanks to James Westlake, I'm Ari Typkin. We're back tomorrow, but for now we're out. Peace.